This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Daniel Jones will be our starting quarterback this season.
I understand this league and how it works, and you've got to perform at a high level week in and week out.
At the end of the day, we all knew somebody was going to have to be on this end of the stick, and it was me.
A big part of it is, he's been injured, and I think that's part of it. And when you're not practicing and playing, it's hard to, go out there and do the things you want to do.
I feel like I did a decent job in improving, but there's still a lot more I can do.
You guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for.
His work ethic is phenomenal. Just looking forward to carrying that through the season.
You look around the league and see just like the consistency of having a quarterback behind you that's like been the franchise player for years and years and years, and getting to build that chemistry with that quarterback year after year, there is an advantage too.
I just got to trust in the Lord, and I got to be where I am right now. Right now I'm in Indianapolis coach.
If Daniel Jones is the week one starter, it's not going to be because he won the job. It's going to be because Anthony Richardson did not hold on to it.
I have no confidence in Richardson. I have no confidence in Jones. Until I see anything of consistency, I don't have confidence in anybody.
This league is a year-to-year league, and what do I feel is best for the Indianapolis Colts in 2025? And I got to make these decisions. That's what I get paid to do, and I got to go with what I feel is right.
It's your decision. It's your decision.
There you go. Shane Steichen, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, on behalf of the entire organization, picking a guy whose best season was 3 years ago when he went 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and he's regressed every single year since. But he's going to turn it around all of a sudden, because the one guy who actually has an 8-7 record in the games in which he started can't apparently get the operations right at the line of scrimmage, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But good morning, Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton. It just feels like it's Groundhog Day, and it's more of the same now for the Indianapolis Colts. Whenever there feels like there's a chance to move ahead and get forward, they get stuck in neutral. It's like I have this car that a couple of months ago, all of a sudden it'll only go 35 miles an hour. I call the dealership. They go, oh, it goes into safety mode, so you can't blow up the engine. Nothing bad's going to happen to you, but you got to get it to the dealership in the next day or two. That's what it feels like with the Indianapolis Colts. We're in safety mode. You got Daniel Jones, whose career average of air yards is like 7. And depending on playmakers, look, it's a good thing they got JT. It's a good thing they've got some varied wide receivers. It's a good thing they got an incredible rookie tight end. They're going to need it. And now that I've had my say, I'm going to turn over to the guys that cover the team every day. But that's been brewing for me for 14 hours now. I don't get it. I guess I kind of understand it. But you're not going to win playoff games with Daniel Jones in the National Football League. It's just not going to happen. Good morning, Kevin Bowen. How are you doing today?
So you're off the 11-win train is what you're telling us?
Yes, I never said 11, but I'm off the 10-win train.
Are you off the 80 catches for 80 Mitchell now?
No, 80 Mitchell might get 80 catches, but he might only average 3 yards a catch now.
That's true.
He might get 80 catches and have 275 yards.
I don't know. Yesterday I saw about a 50-yard deep ball from Daniel Jones.
Can we see more of that?
Mitchell in the old practice. Yeah, not stunned by any means by yesterday's news. I think it was there was evidence that it was trending, and Shane Steichen always, I think, has been a believer in what Daniel Jones brings to their football team. Who do you trust more? That question to me became a lot more prevalent here in the month of August. I think that Baltimore play was one that definitely had some impact on this, and so that's where the Colts are at organizationally. And obviously there's a big picture impact to it all that we'll get into throughout the show. But yeah, again, yesterday's news, it was not the most stunning aspect. I think it just kind of reaffirmed and further confirmed some items of where they're at as a franchise. So yeah, I was not overly stunned by the old Shane Steichen announcement.
James Boyd,
I'll give Kevin some credit there too.
I'm happy to be wrong. Why is that?
He was on this pretty early. I want to say him and Stephen Holder, after Green Bay. Stephen Holder was more in person because he was at the game, the preseason game last Saturday, and he was telling us, man, just go back and listen to everything that Shane said. And I want to say Kevin was a similar fashion when it came to what Daniel Jones himself said after Saturday's preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. And again, the word is consistency. It's, learning things sort of at the line of scrimmage, the operation. I've heard that word a lot more over the last week or so, Kevin, than I've had, I guess, previously regarding this QB battle. So to me, similar to Kevin, I wasn't surprised by it, but I am thinking like, wow, it is quite the move. And we can get into it, and we will get into it throughout the show. But my initial thought is just like, hey, and this is the first question I asked Shane. You are telling us that this guy's a better option than Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
That's fine. But, like, we can't sit here and act like that he's been good. That's my only thing. Like, I get all of the, operational stuff, the check downs, the checks to the line of scrimmage, the cadence, all of these things. And for how good the Colts perceive that to be with Daniel Jones, and perhaps as good as they perceive it to be throughout his career, he's had one good season. And so they're banking a lot on this guy who had, as you alluded to earlier, Jeff, one good season 3 years ago. So it is quite the gamble, in my opinion. And the bigger, broader picture, which Shane Steichen basically said, I don't really care about, he's focused on the here and now, is what does this mean for the future of Anthony Richardson? And you cannot tell me, and, spoiler alert, I have a piece coming out on The Athletic about this later this morning. I'm fine with you all moving on from Anthony if you feel like he's not a starting quarterback. I think his resume would suggest that he's probably not. However, you can't just sit up there and tell us you haven't quit on him, though. You have quit. Like, this is bad. And for his purposes. And so, yes, in theory, he could come back and play this season, all those things. But when you bench a guy who's healthy twice before the start of his third season, I think you're telling him, we don't believe in you. We're giving up on you. I don't care what they tell us, but that's what it looks and feels like.
Yeah, a couple just quick thoughts from Shane Steichen yesterday. The line of scrimmage, James, to your point, was hammered home endlessly. Of Daniel Jones operationally, whatever, gets us in better places. And so I go back to week 1 of Anthony Richardson's rookie year. He was good enough to start then for you. But now, 3 years later, he's not good enough to start from a line of scrimmage standpoint operationally. That confused me. When Shane was pressed on that several times, he referenced, injuries have hurt him in growing in that area. And my question would be, okay, when you're injured, you don't have on-field reps. You still have off-the-field reps. You still have meeting room reps. So if you're saying his growth has been stunted by injuries, well, now you're putting him back in the meeting room when he's healthy. So again, where does he get? You're telling us that it's the injuries that have hurt his career. Okay, well, now he's healthy. Hell, he's not even going to play Saturday in the preseason game in Cincinnati. That one confuses me. He needs reps, period. And he's not even going to go play in that game when, 3 quarters, get him some line of scrimmage, views. And then the other item, and boy, Shane Steichen, I did not have the New York Giants franchise record for completion percentage on the bingo card yesterday. But Shane did drop that during the press conference.
What do you think his career average per attempt is?
Well, he's never been a very high yards per attempt guy. What is it, 6?
6.5.
Yeah. Shane brought up that 2022 season, which you guys have both referenced. And honestly,
I think people forget how that season actually went, but
that is when Shane probably witnessed Daniel Jones the most in his career. And by that I mean this. Shane was in the NFC East. And so when you're game planning for the Eagles, you're running into a lot of Giants film. You're running into a lot of hey, these are similar opponents. Hey, let's see how this offense attack this team, et cetera, et cetera. And part of me is like, wait, what about 2023? What about 2024? When Shane Steichen now is here in Indy. Yeah. So he's not watching Daniel Jones play quarterback for the New York Giants, not watching him go 3-13 as a starter. And honestly, the best thing for Daniel Jones was probably getting benched. And I guess indirectly demanding to be sent away from the New York Giants. Because, Daniel Jones going away from the NFL for 2 months late last season helped him get this job.
Yes, just kind of no one has benefited more from not playing football than Daniel Jones. I'm like, wait a second, did we forget what he actually is?
It's like all of us should do this at work. Should we all take a 2-month sabbatical, still get paid, and then all of a sudden people are like, hey, maybe we should bring that person back. They were kind of good here. That almost
even
feels
though you got jettisoned from your last franchise?
Right. That almost feels like that's what's happening here with Daniel Jones.
Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe consistency and dink and dunk and the occasional downfield shot gets it done and gets you into the the playoffs or the wild card, but I don't see much more than that. And again, James, I'll be happy to be wrong because I'm passionate about the people who love this team. I'm passionate about the people that I know that work over there. I'm passionate about some of the people I've gotten to know with the Colts. I want good things to happen for them. I just don't. It just feels like right now Colts leadership is stuck in the mud, and they just want to get out of the mud and try and get on their way. It's what it feels like.
Jeff is fired up this morning. For those of you all who see Jeff throughout the day, give him a hug. He's struggling right now.
Man.
Give him and Anthony Richardson a hug, I guess.
If you want to feel good, Field DH just released his mock draft 1.0 for 2026. You can see where the Colts are drafting.
I was going to say, I'm going to guess that they're picking a quarterback.
You would be
He's
correct.
got 6 of them in the top 16.
With the 16th pick in the NFL draft.
Somehow he's got him 11. I'm like, are you sure there's 10 worse teams than the Colts next year? I don't
When
know.
do we talk Notre Dame naming their starter yesterday? Are we
Boy, we
fitting
can
that in
lead
here
right
in the
you
3 hours?
9:53.
No,
We'll give you a spot at 9:53.
Got it. Okay.
He's writing it down.
Oh, man. And look, we'll get to some text a little bit later on. The text line, I was viewing it yesterday as the day went along. It's not a happy text line, Kevin.
Not safe for work.
It's not a very happy text line. All right, we've got check down coming up in just a moment. We've got a big day ahead for you. We discussed the future of the Indianapolis Colts. The future's now, James. The future is now. And it's with Daniel Jones. We'll talk about it next as we continue at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning and welcome into Wednesday. It is a new day dawning for the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones has been named the starter for the entire 2025 season.
All right, I'll start off by letting everyone know that Daniel Jones will be our starting quarterback this season. I thought the competition in training camp was great by both of those guys. I thought they both competed really hard, and it was good to see them cheering for each other and battling the way they did. And you guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for. And really the operation at the line of scrimmage, the checks, the protection, the ball placement, the completion percentage, I think all that played a factor in it. I think Daniel did a great job doing that, and I think AR has made strides in that area. But I do feel that, he still needs to continue to develop in those areas. And I had a chance to talk to both of them this morning. They were both great. AR was great. He knows that he still needs to develop and learn in those areas, and he knows that he's one play away. Let those guys know, let the team know this morning. Team's very supportive of Daniel, but also supportive of AR and his new role, and he's got to attack it the right way, and then we'll go from there.
So there you go. Those are the words of Shane Steichen making the announcement yesterday. Fierce competition in training camp reminded me of Steve Young and Joe Montana back in the day. Or not.
I was going to say, not in this version of it. I was thinking this is going to be a bootleg movie or something like that. That's what you're referencing. But he made his choice, and we can certainly dive at it at a million different angles, and we will. But that is the plan. And as Shane also said, there's not going to be a short leash with Daniel Jones. So he's the guy.
Kevin Bowen, we also have some return from injury news at practice yesterday to talk about, right?
Yes, non-quarterback-wise, Kenny Moore, Alec Pierce, Bernard Ryman, all back. Xavier Howard was running with the first unit at his first practice with the Colts. We did see, unfortunately, a couple guys get hurt during practice yesterday. We can hit on that a little bit later. And looking forward to Stephen Holder joining us in about 40 minutes because I know Derek Jackson, the agent for Anthony Richardson, spoke to Steven last night. I thought the Anthony comments in regards to his future with the Colts were a bit
ominous.
Ominous, great word. Thank you, James Boyd, for helping me out there. Yes, ominous. And Derek Jackson's words, I think, furthered the ominous nature to those comments. Should they feel that way? Are they allowed to feel that way? We'll chat about that with Stephen Holder coming up at 8.
All right, meanwhile, the news that we didn't want to hear came out from the Indiana Fever yesterday. The injured right knee of Sophie Cunningham will cause her to miss the rest of the WNBA season. They were short on specifics, but just said she will not play again this year, James.
Yeah, I believe Chloe Peterson from Indy Star reported it was an MCL injury for Sophie Cunningham. That is the Fever's third season-ending injury this month. And so at this point, you got to really feel for them. And like they've done in the past, try to just, put a Band-Aid on it and go out there and try to win. But I do think from a broader perspective, the perspective on that season has changed drastically to the point where it's like, do you just get into the playoffs and try to get in and try to be a tough out? Because anything beyond that is probably a pipe dream as far as this team goes. I just think that they've lost too much to attrition. And obviously not having Caitlin Clark in there is a big factor as well.
Meanwhile, they have replaced Sophie Cunningham on the roster, at least, with Shea Petty. She's on a 7-day hardship contract she had played earlier this year with another WNBA team. Major League Baseball, Mark, I know you've been waiting for this one. Why are you not happy about this?
I am happy.
You
got
look
two
like,
more to get.
All right.
I was going to say, that is the worst happy face I've seen from you ever.
There's still 7 back.
I see you snicker more when I mention something that you can clip for the show.
It could have been 11 back at the end of the day, could it not?
Right.
All right.
Okay. Well,
Chicago,
they could drop it the next 2 days.
The Cubs sweep a doubleheader from the Brewers, 6-4 in the opener, 4-1 in the nightcap. Everybody was playing well for them in that game. We'll get to that a little bit later on. We can also tell you that the Reds won again, Kevin. They beat the Los Angeles Angels 6-4. They're rolling a little bit right now. A modest 3-game winning streak, but playing pretty well overall.
Hunter Green, a dozen Ks last night. Mark, congrats.
Thank you.
Good work for your club.
Thank you. Now we'll keep it rolling, boys.
Gotta love that. And so that's what's happening in Major League Baseball. The Cardinals also beat the Marlins by a score of 7-4. James Boyd, anything else you want to throw in before we move along here?
Rick Carlisle's extension.
I was gonna say.
You
gotta go with the man that joins us every Tuesday here.
We're
My boy
gonna have
got
the big
that
finish
bag,
with that.
you know, Rick Carlisle. I just picture him, doing was it a Summer League with the dark shades on? He threw up his, hands, and I was thinking, yeah, drop that gif after you get the bag, Rick Carlisle. But certainly well-deserved in his third stint with the franchise, second as head coach. He obviously gets the no-brainer extension after going to the finals for the first time with that franchise, that is, since 2000.
I haven't seen any particulars on that one yet either, have you?
They never announce the particulars when it comes to coaches and the amount of money that they make and how many years. But, I'll do some digging and see what I can find out, but I wouldn't hold my breath on it, honestly.
Something I've thought about in regards to Carlisle with the Pacers, and I think I feel this way about Matt Painter and West Lafayette as well. Those two, with those franchises, program, in Matt Painter's case, they deserve a championship. Like, what Matt Painter's done with the Purdue Boilermakers, what Rick Carlisle has done with the Indiana Pacers, it's gone too well not to have the cherry on top. Like, there's been so much good. They've given their fan bases joys that some people never even thought they would get to as, whatever, a Purdue fan or a Pacers fan. The out-of-nowhere nature, the heartbreak that was involved in both injuries, really, for Purdue, and then for the Pacers, obviously had the injury this year, but certainly had the brawl in Rick's first iteration here as the head coach. It just seems like those two guys deserve that. And
I know, but deserve is such a tantalizing word as a fan, because I'm like, there's plenty of players that deserve it.
The Hollywood, like, if it is a Hollywood story, it will end with that.
Yeah,
and,
that's fair.
Who knows if it'll be at Lucas Oil Stadium for Purdue here coming up, and obviously for the Pacers, maybe it's going to take a little bit longer with Tyrese's injury, but just remarkable job by both of them, and well-deserved for Rick Carlisle. And that staff continues to stay together. That core of Lloyd Pierce and Mike Weiner and Jenny Busick.
Mike Weiner had an opportunity, I believe, to go to the Knicks to be their top assistant
with Mike Brown,
and decided to stay.
Yeah, that's unusual. You don't typically see these staffs stick together as much as it has as well. So, yes, shout out to Rick Carlisle on that multi-year extension.
Yeah, it's good to see that. Rick Carlisle is the reason I still think with the talent they do have, they're still a 45-win team in the Eastern Conference in the NBA.
We'll certainly see. I just think that the loss of Tyrese Halliburton, people are going to feel it a bit more just because he's such a great player. But one thing is for certain, Jeff, they will scratch and claw and fight during those games.
All right, scratching, clawing, fighting. That's our text line right now. some of them like the Shane Steichen decision. Most of them don't like it.
I'm talking a few people off the ledge right now as we speak.
All these.
Yeah, we're getting flooded.
We will get to that and get your thoughts on everything happening with the Indianapolis Colts, your team, our team, the city's team. We'll do it next at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I hit that, but that's okay.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I was wondering when we were going to get to Indiana Jones. Mark Dykton, well played, well done.
QB1. That's what we're rolling with here.
Oh, my goodness. We got a lot of folks with opinions on QB1 on the fan text line at
Change his name to
239-1070 today.
I like Dan Jones. You think Dan Jones could be a new alter
I drive
ego?
on Dan Jones
Maybe
quite
more
often.
of a swagger.
Isn't he
over an Avon.
technically like Daniel Jones the third or something like that? I thought
Is it really?
Yes.
By the way,
Royalty.
Colts quarterback Dan Jones. I could see that happen.
Somebody
he's
pointed
Daniel
out to me.
Stephen Jones the third.
And they are right that by if he wins the first two games and they go into their first divisional game 2-0, I'll be like, hey, Daniel Jones, go.
Wins the first two games. He's just got to win the first game. If he wins the first game, they're going to be carrying him to his home.
Riding him
That'll
off
be
the
their
field
first-
and on the shoulders.
Yeah, first season opening win if that were the case since 2013.
Oh, man.
The problem with Dan Jones is Dan Jones Road in Avon has lots of accidents a lot of the time. There's usually lots of construction going on.
Yeah.
Usually a lot of work in progress, so hopefully
Well,
that's
Mark,
not
you'll know from
foreshadowing.
Chicago area, Dan Ryan is the one that
Oh,
always got me.
boy.
Lord.
Well, you got almost had on a one-way this morning trying to get into work.
Yeah, anybody just out there, and this is I got a few people in the YouTube chat who were laughing about this, me coming in at a little like 7-01. If you get into a fender bender, you can't just stop in the middle of the street on a one-way. I'm like, we got to move around a little bit. So, yeah, I had to be a little bit of a, I won't say jerk this morning, but a little bit stern. Like, hey, let's get some pep in our step and in our cars for that matter as you wait for the police to, I don't know, file a report or something like that.
I'd pay
But-
money to watch you be stern.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm honestly
You're
a pretty chill driver.
happy-go-lucky dude.
Yeah, I don't usually use my horn, but I was like, hey, man, I do want to get to work. And obviously, today of all days, I got to be there.
Mark never uses his horn, do you, Mark?
No, I use horns, fingers, my voice.
All right, let's get to the text line. I don't even want to know what the answer to that is. 239-1070 is the number to call. Mike checking in. He's been a Colts fan since they got here. The Colts have started to remind him of the late 80s, early 90s, having a different quarterback every year or other stability has departed from the organization. By the time we find a QB, we will have to get rid of some key players, or it'll be that they can't expect these players to wait on a leader that's not even on the team right now. If you expected Jones to be a leader, just look at the time he was a Giant. What we have here is a dumpster fire. It's time to clean house. Love the show. I don't know I'm that far, but it's not good right now.
I was going to say, no. You sounded that far in the opening segment.
Because
You
I'm
were fired up.
frustrated right now. I am frustrated right now.
Elaborate. Sit on the couch.
I don't know that I'd call
to
it
me.
I wouldn't call it I'm not at dumpster fire level. I'm at, as I said, we're in safety mode. The engine's not going to blow up, but we're not going to be able to go more than 35 miles an hour.
I think that's probably a good way to put it, honestly. I think that they thought, hey, we can win with a more conservative, less erratic quarterback. My only pushback to as far as the consistency and safety mode of Daniel Jones is that he's not, throughout his career outside of 2022, he hasn't really been that player. And yes, his completion percentage is over 60% for his career. I think I want to say it's 64.1 or something like that, which is actually a pretty good percentage. But again, and I'm not here sitting saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they benched Anthony again." He's had a rough go of it his first 2 years. His camp wasn't all that great to me. No one really won that battle. It was more like the picking the lesser of two evils. But for Daniel Jones, I just don't want to go too far the other way with inflating what we've seen documented a lot. I mean, the guy is 20 games under 500 as a quarterback in the NFL. Now, I get that isn't all on him, and he had certainly some organizational issues with the Giants, but that doesn't mean he gets absolved of everything either. So that's kind of where I'm at, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, hell, he's played, 70-some games, and I want to say he's
69 starts.
He's nearing 100 turnovers in his career. So, when you think about consistency, certainly not from a ball security standpoint. Yeah, I think Colts' frustration from fans is rooted in a couple different areas. One, they've seen this song and dance before. They feel like Dan Jones is just Jacoby Brissett. He's Carson Wentz. He's Gardner Minshew. He's Joe Flacco. He's Matt Ryan. The Colts have attempted this sort of safe Band-Aid operation, and it's gotten you to this point now, 6 years into the Andrew Luck post-playing career. And so I think that's where probably a lot of the frustration. And honestly, yesterday for me was just a further reminder of, as we sit here right now, August 20th, heading into Anthony Richardson's year 3 in the NFL, the pick has just been an utter organizational failure. It was a failure in evaluation of him at Florida. it was a failure in thinking that development could occur on and off the field. And you can go back to that draft, whatever, not offering Carolina what needed to be offered to get to the number 1 pick and have your choice of those quarterbacks. Your franchise quarterback is not supposed to be holding the Microsoft Surface. I would say clipboard, but I need to go with the times. Not supposed to be holding the Microsoft Surface heading into year 3. So staff-wise, it's been the same operation. It's been Shane Steichen, Jim Bob Cooter, and Cam Turner now for 3 years. You know, when Andrew Luck was drafted, Chuck Pagano, one thing I think Chuck didn't mess around with was that first offensive staff. I mean, he had Bruce Arians and Clyde Christensen as Andrew Luck's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. That Arians and Christensen resume, a little different than what the Colts have with Anthony Richardson. Think about the first substantial backup of Andrew Luck's career, Matt Hasselbeck. That's a little different. Gardner Minshew wanted no part of teaching Anthony Richardson. Joe Flacco, he wanted to teach as much as James Boyd wants to be a father right now.
Yeah.
And obviously Daniel Jones is trying to resurrect his career. Yeah. So you've never gone with that sort of, hey, even like New York, for example, and Shane brought this up yesterday, who did Daniel Jones have in New York when he got drafted? Eli Manning, to obviously watch how his work ethic played out there. So again, to me, it's just an organizational failure so far with Anthony Richardson, and so much of it is rooted in the misevaluation at Florida, and then I think probably I go next to just Shane Steichen's blinders and thinking, believing, no, I can get this guy to whatever, an acceptable level, and obviously that's not happened at all.
I think you made a very good point there, Kevin, and to elaborate on that more and probably put it more blunter, if that is a proper way to use the term.
Sounded good.
Bluntly. I think we'd go bluntly.
Yeah, bluntly, blunter, whatever, blunt.
420 somewhere.
I think that yesterday was an admittance by the franchise that they whiffed on the most important pick of the Chris Ballard era. That's as plainly and succinct as I can put it. You missed. That is what all of this looks like. Now, you can tell us you have a plan for Anthony Richardson. This isn't the end, and you have these two timelines. You're trying to win right now, but we're going to still believe in our guy. The bottom line is you drafted a player, number 4 overall, a couple years ago, the highest drafted player since Andrew Luck, to become your next Andrew Luck and to become your long-term answer at the quarterback position, and you failed miserably. And you're trying to find a life raft and a lifeboat, and the driver of that lifeboat at the moment is Daniel Jones, who, by the way, has not had much success getting you to the island. So I don't know. I understand the decision. Again, I'm going from Anthony Richardson. I can't sit up here and say it's not, mostly on him, I would think, because of the injuries and some of the immaturity things and, having to bench him. All of these are a factor for sure. Inaccuracy being another big factor. However, again, man, what a decision to make when you have to choose between Richardson or Daniel Jones. Essentially, in my opinion, probably trying to save your jobs. Because if this does not work, but that does not work, I mean, at minimum, you got to make the playoffs. Anything below that, I would be hard for me to say why anybody should be brought back.
Yeah, honestly, I think you can make the argument the scariest part might be the Colts scratch and claw on their way to like 9 or 10 wins. And then you give Daniel Jones a 3-year, $60 million contract.
But then I don't blame the coaching staff for necessarily pivoting toward it. If they think they can get to the playoffs,
right.
I mean, your job is to win.
And that's where Carly Gordon's going to have to step in and make probably even a harder call. Because how do you view this regime right now? Because, if Chris Ballard's handing you his resume, he doesn't want you to look at the playoff aspect of the resume. 1 playoff win in 9 years, 0 division titles. And then also, if you wanted to play we've got the young draft pick and it's going to take a little bit more time for further evaluation. Well, the most prized resource from a draft pick standpoint this franchise has had in, 13 years? The 4th overall pick. Again, in year 3, he's going to wear an earpiece here coming up 2 weeks from Sunday. That's not, obviously, a ringing endorsement either. So, boy, there is part of me that's like, man, because I don't think the Colts are going to fall off a cliff. I don't think they're going to be some top 5, top 10 drafting team. I really don't. So if they get to the end of the season, and let's say it goes like the New York Giants 2022 season, the Colts go 9-6-1. Daniel Jones looks competent. What are you doing? You extended Daniel Jones? You running it back with Ballard and Steichen?
So I'll tell you the last team that did that were the New York Giants that gave him a 4-year deal after that season. And look what happened from there.
So that, I think, is going to be, and I know I'm looking ahead a little bit, but I think that could be a very, very interesting and difficult situation of why do you feel like the 1-year hit, potentially, here in Indy will be any different than the 1-year hit was with the New York Giants.
Anthony writes in, speaking for a lot of folks here on the fan text line. Good morning, guys. Let's just get real. I know it's your job to talk about this stuff. I know the Colts fans are upset. I'm a Colts fan. But I mean, to have any defense of Anthony Richardson for his first 3 years, the guy can't stay healthy. He's below 50% completion ratio. He shouldn't even be in the NFL. If so, he should be a running back or something other than a quarterback. And why we keep defending or people calling and say he should be starting is completely crazy in my mind. And here's how I would address that. Is Anthony Richardson one of the top 25 quarterbacks in the NFL? No, he's not. Is Daniel Jones? No, he's not. It goes back to a broader thing that is a complete indictment on the way that they have judged and or failed to develop quarterbacks over the last, ever since really Phillip Rivers left. They haven't been able to find the guy. They haven't really been able to do it. And they keep trying, All I can tell you is that Anthony Richardson was 8-7 as a starter. Not great, but they got some things done. There were clear issues. Nobody was more unhappy about him taking himself out of a game than I was. The completion percentage is unacceptable. I get all that stuff. But I'll also tell you, James, that he's younger than a lot of the rookies that are in the NFL this year.
See, okay, can I push back on that?
You can push back. I'm just saying
I don't care about his age anymore.
But he's got room to grow.
Why does his age matter when you still have to make a decision on his contract? Like, his contract doesn't freeze because he's 23. So after this season, you have to decide, do we pick up his 5th-year option? And then after that, you got to decide, do we want to pay this guy? So I don't understand.
What do you think he commands on the open market?
Not much.
Well, there you go.
I saw trade proposals for the Rams and the Colts, and the Rams were getting Anthony Richardson for like a 5th and a 6th round pick, and I was like, that seems generous.
I would even take the and out of that, like 5th and what? Like, I mean,
Trey Lance was a lot. 4th, I believe, if I remember correctly.
I don't understand that. That's my. Like, I get why you might want to stick with Anthony, but the age thing to me means nothing at this point. I don't really care that much.
I think it's almost impossible for anyone to stand on a mountain for Daniel Jones and or Anthony Richardson and make a case for them to be the starting quarterback and have no one poke holes in it. Like, how many times yesterday did I say to you guys, whatever name Shane Steichen says today, and I thought it would be Daniel Jones, it's going to be the lesser of two evils. Like, that is the reality of where you are at. But I will continue to reiterate what I've said now for years. Band-Aids only get you so far, particularly in this conference. Like, we're talking about the AFC in a golden era of quarterbacks. They all are still young, and we're not even going with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Or hell, Tua has made 2 playoff appearances with the Miami Dolphins. Right now, if you're a New England Patriots fan, you're probably pretty optimistic about Drake May. Like, those franchises aren't even one of the 7 playoff teams that we saw from last year. And it comes back to, why did Kansas City move on from Alex Smith and got Patrick Mahomes? Why did Baltimore move on from Joe Flacco and draft Lamar Jackson? Buffalo was a playoff team right before Josh Allen arrived there in 2018. Look at what the Minnesota Vikings have done over the last couple of years. Kirk Cousins was fine. They went out, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. They let Sam Darnold walk after a nice season. If Daniel Jones has the exact same season that Sam Darnold had this past year in Minnesota, you going to hand him a 3 or 4 year deal? Or are you going to opt for that 2026 draft? You have to go and find the quarterback that tries to give your franchise the highest ceiling. The Daniel Joneses, those Band-Aid type quarterbacks, they're just going to keep you stuck in quarterback purgatory. And if you're in quarterback purgatory in the NFL, you're in hell.
You're not wrong. And again, when I stump for Anthony Richardson today, it should be somewhat faint and muted. I just don't think Daniel Jones is really any kind of your answer moving forward. I don't know what you want, what you're expecting to get from him.
Let's get into like what Steichen is thinking here. Steichen is going Daniel Jones. And his thought process is, and again, I am speaking for Shane Steichen here, so feel free to poke holes at me. He is bullish
Hole poker
on himself as a play caller. He thinks he is an elite play caller. And so he wants the X's and O's that are drawn up on Tuesday and Wednesday to look like that on Sunday. He's thinking the Colts have a great run game with Jonathan Taylor. He's thinking the Colts have a great offensive line. He's thinking the Colts have improved pass catchers. And he's expecting this defense to be a better than bottom third unit in the NFL. He's basically saying the New York Giants were the definition of dysfunction around Daniel Jones.
They kind of were.
Which is kind of scary to think that they ran the Colts off the field last year. But that's neither here nor there. That's what he's thinking. And so that's why he's going with Daniel Jones. Because I want to have as much control over this situation as I can. And I feel like Daniel Jones gives me that. And again, we'll see. Is it Gardner Minshew 2023 where you're one play away from making the playoffs? Is Daniel Jones better than Gardner Minshew?
So let me ask you a question. Let's say
I would
he
think
gets
so,
the
probably, honestly. I do
so
think
if he's better than Gardner Minshew and your defense takes a little bit of a step forward, then in Shane Steichen's eyes, the Colts are a playoff team.
right.
So let me
and I
ask you
get
a
why he
question.
would do that. Yeah.
If they go to the playoffs, the wild card, and they get beaten the wild card, but they get to the playoffs, now what do you do with Daniel Jones moving forward?
It's a terrific question.
You're right. You're right back where you started.
Exactly. So, again.
But I think from their perspective, they would much rather have that on their resume to say, well, at least we made the playoffs. Well, before you try to think about changing anything up,
trust me,
we made the playoffs. We ended the drought. Hey, we had success this year.
I get why Shane Steichen is doing what he's doing. I get it. I just don't agree with how the organization has handled Anthony Richardson, and Anthony Richardson has handled himself since day one. Again, to me, it's just an organizational failure in the evaluation at Florida and then the handling. So he was good enough to handle the line of scrimmage stuff on September 10th, 2023, but on September 7th, 2025, he's no longer able to handle that. To me, it's been just a mishandling since day one.
I kind of feel like they're trying to plug the holes of the boat and just keep the boat afloat until they can figure out a better answer right now. It's kind of what it feels like.
Well, yeah. And I think the argument, at least from the uproar I've heard from the fan base, I think they're valid in this instance, is like, okay, if you miss on Anthony, which I think at this point, I don't see how you don't count that as a miss for a pick or for the franchise, why should any of you have an opportunity to go get the next guy, in theory? If it doesn't work out with Daniel Jones, if it doesn't work out with Anthony Richardson, then why should we trust you to make the decision again at quarterback when it is the most important position probably in North American sports? So,
not South American sports.
I don't know. Do they have American football down there?
Well, maybe a striker, I guess.
They'll have that game in Brazil coming up in week 2.
This is
What's
true.
the
Week
most
1,
important position on the soccer field?
The 9.
I'm going to say goalie because
So the 9 is a striker?
Yeah,
I'm going
striker,
goalie.
middle of the field forward, 9.
Okay, so that's
I'm
more
going
important
goalie.
than
If you
like
have
a
a bad
midfielder.
goalie, you're done.
Okay, all right.
But
Should we talk Indy 11? How's the MLS stadium update here locally?
like I said, it's
It's a good day for
our
him.
boy Chad Buchanan out there for the Noblesville Boom, making some announcements, I believe, yesterday. So, yeah, if you want to pivot away from our circular talks about quarterbacks, feel free, Kevin.
Jeff with the G says they kept saying last year that all Richardson needed was actual playing time. He's not going to learn how to play quarterback sitting on the bench behind Daniel blanking Jones.
Dan Jones.
And this is my thing, too.
You're making the move for Dan Jones.
Dan Jones.
then, huh?
We got to start it. Mark, help me out on this. Dan Jones.
I'll try.
What does Daniel want? Is probably more.
Doesn't strike me as one that'll be too optimistic about my Dan idea.
Yeah, but to add to that, Kevin, I do think to an extent the organization has to be able to say, or at least internally, something to Anthony that, because if you're telling him we're not giving up on you, my question to follow up, and I couldn't get a clear answer yesterday, and I figured it wouldn't be the case because your emotions are fresh and things are still kind of new with the way the news came out, obviously, of Daniel being the starter. However, what is the plan for Anthony? That's my thing. What is it? Can you lay it out for me and tell me how can he get better by not playing, not getting the reps? And you know how I feel about this. And Jeff, you're not in the media rooms quite as often as others, but whenever anybody mentions mental reps, I roll my eyes. I don't care about that. I think mental reps is a myth, honestly. I mean, I've taken a lot of mental reps of NFL snaps and can't play like a quarterback. So how does he get better by not playing, and how do you justify that part of it?
James, you and I chatted right after the press conference ended yesterday, and you were like, hey, Kevin, that was a little feisty there. I don't do this very often in press conferences. Yeah. At one point, I asked Shane Steichen 3 questions in a row because I didn't think he was making any sense to me.
Right.
And the root of it is what you just brought up. He kept on pointing to injuries for why Anthony Richardson is not better at the line of scrimmage. Right. And so my question now becomes, okay, when he had the injuries, he was getting the mental reps, right? He was in the meeting rooms. And then now he's back in the meeting rooms. That's where he is at again, not getting these reps. And I don't know if there's a bigger misconception than NFL practices in the regular season. Anthony Richardson is going to run the scout team coming up here in 2 weeks. He's going to be the Miami Dolphins in practice. He's not even going to run the Colts' own playbook. And we know the Colts opt for Wednesday walkthroughs relatively early in seasons. So that amount of practice time, hell, the guy's not even playing Saturday in a preseason game. Like, to me,
I do want to follow up on that at some point with him. Like, why isn't he? Like, he wants to see the threes. I don't.
None of that makes sense to me. None of it. None of it makes sense. And tangibly, how do you try and get? You're kicking the can further down the road. And in my opinion, I think you need clarity. I think you need to get to the final answer. And that answer can be a bad answer. And if it's a bad answer, great. That means you can move on. And you could dial up Field Yates' mock draft and take, who were they even taking, Mark, with the 11th pick? Fernando Mendoza?
Penn State's Drew Aller.
Boy, I think you just threw another one to Notre Dame.
I was going to say, Lord, I watched him in the college football playoff last year.
You can go there. You can take the kid from South Carolina. You can take the kid from LSU. You could, pray that Arch comes out. You can move on and try to find the centerpiece of your franchise. But now, yesterday's news, it just further kicks it down the road.
Mark, real quickly, let's go to the phone lines before we get to Stephen Holder coming up after the break. Joe, real quickly here on the fan hotline. What you got today?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. First off, James, is that a Grace College up in Warsaw shirt?
No, I'm sorry. This is a Grace Burger shirt from Indiana. Shout out to the IU legend. I do know Grace College, though.
All right, never mind. Anyways, no, I was calling just to say basically, I'm a Colts fan. When Jim Harbaugh was there, I supported Jim Harbaugh. When Peyton Manning was there, I supported him, and so on and so forth. And I think what gets lost is there's obviously something going on that maybe we just don't know about. Like, it's kind of like that guy at work that, he's a nice guy and he has potential, but, like, he's just not getting it. Like, the guy just doesn't get it for some reason. And you're rooting for him, and he could be good if he could figure it out, but he's just not getting it. And it's like, Daniel Jones, could he be the next Sam Darnold that he turns his career around? Could he be a Baker Mayfield? I mean, even going way back to like a Rich Gannon who was a journeyman and gets with John Gruden and becomes a Pro Bowler. Like, is it possible that Daniel Jones, he's 28, 29 years old, could he turn his career around? Could he be the future? Is it possible? I mean, we just need a guy that can make the layups, I think. We don't necessarily need a guy that can hit home runs every time. We need a guy that can make the layups and get the ball to the playmakers. We have Tyler Warren. We have Josh Downs. We have Jonathan Taylor. The defense should be improved. I mean, why can't we be better? Why can't we be a good, competitive, solid team? I mean, when Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl with the Ravens, I mean, they didn't have Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you can win games with good defense and running the ball. And I just think that we got to support our Colts, and we got to trust these guys that do this for a living. This is their career, and they want to win. I mean, Steichen wants to win.
We all want to win. I appreciate the phone call and the perspective, Joe. I'll also point out that the Ravens, everybody always says, good defense. That was an historically great defense, maybe one of the best of all time.
Yeah, I can't. Joe, appreciate the call. Thank you for listening. Shout out to Grace College. I can't agree with that. Yeah, I mean, again, and what's Baker Mayfield getting you? What's Sam Darnold getting you? What's Geno Smith getting you? How many playoff wins for those quarterbacks? Everybody brings this up. Like, these guys have been making deep playoff runs. Did I miss all this?
Yeah, we saw when it got real at the very end of the season. Those teams are
still in quarterback purgatory. Yeah. They're just a little bit higher up on the rung than
at the very end of the season when things got real, and in the first week of the playoffs, Sam Darnold went back being Sam Darnold.
It feels like that premise in this conversation is exactly what was said about Jacoby Brissett. It's exactly what was said about Joe Flacco. It's exactly what was said about Matt Ryan. It's the same song and dance, just sometimes the skin color is different on the quarterback. Sometimes maybe the legs are a little bit better. Sometimes the back of the baseball card looks a little different. But it's the same old big picture story.
All right, coming up next, Stephen Holder. He covers the Colts at ESPN. We'll talk to him next, get his perspective as we continue on the Fan Morning Show, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
Daniel Jones will be our starting quarterback this season.
I understand this league and how it works, and you've got to perform at a high level week in and week out.
At the end of the day, we all knew somebody was going to have to be on this end of the stick, and it was me.
A big part of it is, he's been injured, and I think that's part of it. And when you're not practicing and playing, it's hard to, go out there and do the things you want to do.
I feel like I did a decent job of improving, but there's still a lot more I can do.
You guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for.
His work ethic is phenomenal. Just looking forward to carrying that through the season.
You look around the league and see just like the consistency of having a quarterback behind you that's like been the franchise player for years and years and years, and getting to build that chemistry with that quarterback year after year. There is an advantage too.
I just got to trust in the Lord, and I got to be where I am right now. Right now, I'm in Indianapolis coach.
If Daniel Jones is the week 1 starter, it's not going to be because he won the job. It's going to be because Anthony Richardson did not hold on to it.
I have no confidence in Richardson. I have no confidence in Jones. Until I see anything of consistency, I don't have confidence in anybody.
This league is a year-to-year league, and what do I feel is best for the Indianapolis Colts in 2025? And I got to make these decisions. That's what I get paid to do, and I got to go with what I feel is right.
Busy day at West 56th yesterday. The Indianapolis Colts giving the nod to Daniel Jones, or as Kevin is trying to get it done, Dan Jones yesterday. Our next guest joins us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. No stranger to the station, no stranger to the Colts and Colts fans. Stephen Holder, who's been a busy man like everybody else in the last, 18 hours or so, joins us. Good morning, Stephen. I'm minding my own business this morning, listening to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio this morning, and all of a sudden at 5:33 I hear Stephen Holder coming out of my my radio there. How about that?
Well, I was not awake at 5:30, so thankfully. But they got a lot of airtime out of me, so I'm sure they had plenty of content, so good for them.
So what was your take on everything that went down yesterday?
Yeah, excuse me. I really think the first thing that has to be mentioned here is, look, no one's pretending that Anthony Richardson is by any means perfect or had, or should feel like he had any expectation of being owed anything like that, right? He has left a lot to be desired. There's no question about that. I think the big point here, the overarching point for me, is that they made this decision irrespective of the future of that position on this football team, because you are not developing Anthony Richardson with him sitting on the bench. I reject that notion completely. He's not going to develop, not the way he would when he's playing. And then the other thing is you're doing that while committing to a guy who has shown really no ability to elevate his team in 6 previous seasons. So it's not the fact that they're not playing Anthony Richardson. It's that they're doing it at the cost of finding out more about him, which they need to do, and also in favor of a guy who clearly hasn't elevated his team ever. And that is that's a tough thing to maybe accept, I think, for a lot of fans. So we'll see. There's a scenario where they could be proven right, but that's a lot to ask right now.
Stephen, I know it was a crazy busy day for you, so appreciate you still making time for us here on this Wednesday morning. You furthered the story late last night in a conversation with Anthony Richardson's agent. The quote there from Derek Jackson. We have a lot to discuss in regards to Anthony's future with the Colts. What did you make of your conversation? And didn't seem like it went all the way to the trade demand sort of point, but certainly some displeasure, if that's the right word to use, from the Richardson camp over this news.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had not spoken to Chris Ballard at that point. He was hoping to do that later in the evening, so I'm not sure what came of that, but a lot of disappointment in that conversation. And I think the overarching point, in the conversation was, look, they feel like, they being, Derek and Anthony, Derek being his agent, they feel like we did everything you asked us to do, from the Colts. And he was asked to go out and work in the offseason. Everyone agrees he did that. And And we saw the product of that, I thought, in training camp. I thought he was much more mechanically smooth. He looked like he was much more put together, right, as a quarterback. Doesn't mean he was a finished product. He certainly is not. But he took it upon himself to get better. Then I think there's also the history, right, where the benching last season, the way that was handled, it was messy. The way the back issue was kind of characterized, that was of some annoyance as well. So it's an accumulation of things that have brought, I think, both of them to a point where, like, we're not really listening to anything you say at this point. You know, what will be will be. I think that's where Richardson and his camp are at this point. How do you see it playing out? Like, best case scenario, would you not best case scenario, but I don't know, maybe most realistic case, like this season rides out as the backup. Will, if and when Daniel Jones gets hurt or doesn't play well, perhaps we see Richardson in there again, and then maybe something happens in the offseason. There's so many layers to this. It's probably an unfair question to even ask, but how do you see the Richardson end of his career here in Indy, if you want to label it that, playing out? No, I mean, I think the most likely scenario is that he does remain on the roster, and I think at that point, if you're Anthony Richardson, well, who knows what happens with the front office and coaching staff, right? But if he's on the roster at that point and he doesn't see a future here, which right now would be the case, you ask for your release or a trade. But I think that trade request is probably going to come. I really do. Now, do I think they trade him? No, not necessarily. Before the season, you think it'll come? I mean, this is me talking. I'm not speaking for Derek, but I'm just saying, just in terms of where they are now, I mean, that's going to come up in the conversation, 100%. Now, whether it's a formal trade request, I don't know. I mean, maybe Chris can smooth it over. I don't know. But Derek's pissed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's pissed. What I wrote is, frankly, the mildest version of that conversation. So now, whether you feel like they have the right to feel that way, I mean, that's up to the individual, but feelings are what they are, right? And people feel how they feel. So there's a lot of animosity there. And I think if you watch training camp, it's not surprising, right? I mean, we can't truly sit here and say Daniel Jones significantly outplayed Anthony Richardson. That's not true, right? But the Colts are free to make whatever decision they want, and there is a justification for it. I mean, Shane gave us one. But I do think that when you feel like you've been told there's been a commitment made to you and then it goes a different way, when you feel like you did your part, that's a tough thing to swallow. So anyway, to your original question, what happens? I think he probably ends up here throughout the season, but the last thing I would say is keep in mind before or when he was drafted last season, when he was benched last season, there were teams that called and said, hey, what are your plans there? They were kind of curious. So could that happen again?
Stephen Holder on the Payless Liquors hotline. Go ahead, James.
Holder, I'll pivot to this part of the conversation because to me, I don't necessarily blame the Colts for benching Anthony Richardson again. I don't think that he had like the strongest argument ever. I did read your story and great work there, but when I saw Derek say he had a great camp by all accounts, I was thinking, not by most of our accounts. We were there every day. It was not a great camp. It was a camp, in my opinion. But neither here nor there. What plan do you see the Colts having for him? That's the question I want to ask Shane and Richardson. But, like, what is the plan? If you're telling us you're not giving up on him, and this is what it looks and feels like, what is the plan? And I guess where do you kind of fall in that discussion?
I mean, I think it's a bad plan. The plan is to let him run the scout team. Okay, well, whoop-de-doo. I mean, this isn't going to get him anywhere is what I'm saying. So if the priority here is we're going to try to win and save our jobs, then all right, and I guess they think they're doing the right thing. If the priority is we want to develop this quarterback and also give ourselves a chance at maybe having a chance at a higher ceiling just because he is the unknown commodity, right? And I get it, right? There's some risk involved there in the bigger picture, and maybe that's not a path they're willing to walk. But if that's not a consideration, then basically what you're saying is you're taking a timeout with Anthony Richardson. You know what I mean? Like, he's not Riley Leonard who needs to go learn how to, like, you know, how to learn NFL defenses and that kind of thing. I mean, Anthony Richardson needs more development there, but the man has played NFL football, right? So that type of learning is only going to help him so much. And the point I made on TV is that he had that in year one. He had 13 games of watching Gardner Minshew and Shane Steichen do their thing, and that got him where, right? So that type of learning has a limited effect. You got to play, and he will not be playing. So I see this as, frankly, potentially a wasted year for Anthony Richardson. I don't really see how you phrase it any other way. The other thing I would say is that if you commit to a quarterback, if you commit to drafting a project quarterback, you got to see it through, and they're not seeing it through. That is what it is, and they have to own that, and they are not.
And then to follow up, you mentioned the project quarterback part, and obviously for Anthony, I think a lot of the reason he's here was because Shane advocated for him to be here. Now Shane is advocating for Daniel Jones, and so two-part question here. How much of Anthony Richardson's lack of development do you think falls on Shane Steichen? And then how much should he be trusted with the resurrection? Because that's what you're trying to do with Daniel Jones. You're trying to resurrect his career. How much should he be trusted with that in regards to Jones?
I mean, I think you have to ask questions. And some of this stuff is impossible to answer, right? Because none of us are in the meeting room. We're not in the huddle or any of that. So I don't know. But
use your ESPN access and get in there. Come on, man.
It's funny how there's limitations to how far they can get you.
This is true.
It's interesting though. I think your question is totally fair, and I think we have to ask those questions. So, we won't get straight answers maybe, but those are fair questions, because we talk all the time about these quarterbacks that have these second acts. They go somewhere else and suddenly they start to flourish. Well, we don't talk about enough in those situations. It's not just experience necessarily. Some of it is experience and time and so forth. But maybe the question should also be asked, well, what happened in those earlier stops? How were they handled? How were they coached? How were they developed? Right? I mean, that's a question too. Why does it have to take 5 or 6 years? Is that all about experience, or are there other things at work too? So I do think you can't put all this on the 23-year-old quarterback who didn't know what the hell he was doing. Okay, let's just be honest, right? You can't put all of it on him. Some of it's on him for sure, and he's got to be a serious quarterback and a serious individual, which I think is finally happening. But not all of it is on Anthony. Some of it has to be on the team that took him, knowing who he was and what he was when they drafted him.
Stephen, great to see you this past weekend. Good to hear you this morning. We'll run into each other again soon. Thank you for being here.
All right. Lots to talk about. See you guys soon.
You bet. Stephen Holder, ESPN, joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline.
Does Richardson have merit to request a trade?
His agent seems to think so.
Okay, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, trade request from Terry McLaurin sounds a little different than, Trey Hendrickson sounds a little different than Anthony Richardson. I am of the belief that I think it'd be beneficial for the Colts to get further clarity. I continue see the project out, I think maybe is a phrase that Steven used. I agree with Steven on that. But I also can sit here and say, dude, is a trade request really what you're going for right now? There's part of me that just thinks Anthony Richardson, the best case scenario for him is swallow your pride. You're one play away. James Boyd, has Daniel Jones ever finished an entire season healthy in his NFL career?
1 out of his first 6 so far.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe
that was a playoff year.
Several of those years had multiple games missed.
Yeah, I believe in his 6 years as a quarterback in the NFL, he's missed at least 2 games due to injury or benching.
So if I'm Richardson,
4 out of the 6.
Stay with the offense you're familiar with. See it out, and then at the end of the season, you go from there. I understand agent displeasure. I get you need to do the media thing to reach out. I understand where he's going with it, but I don't think you cross the line and go full on trade request here next week. I don't see that as beneficial for Anthony Richardson.
No, I don't see that either. But at the same time, the moment this season ends, everything.
Sure, but he gets traded to the Rams tomorrow.
Oh, he'd love that. I'd love that if I was
And
him.
Matthew Stafford's back injury turns to be a chronic thing. So now it's Jimmy Garoppolo as the starter and Richardson's the backup. Garoppolo gets hurt in week 3. You think that's great for Anthony Richardson to walk into a new offense here in a month and go play? To me, that's not beneficial for the kid's career.
It might be.
I think
it's one thing for a veteran.
I was going to say it might be.
To Kevin's point,
for 1 month, you think in 1 month Sean McVay's going to resurrect Anthony Richardson because no practice reps?
No.
To his point, though, James, it's one thing for Baker Mayfield, an experienced guy who's played in multiple offenses, occasionally at a high level, to go into Los Angeles in 1 week and be able to be effective.
Crazy.
Right, but my point is he'd been around the block a few times and had an understanding of NFL offenses.
Okay.
Anthony Richardson's not
to
that
mention
guy.
he's a Heisman Trophy winning college quarterback.
This is also true.
So my point is I don't think it's likely that Anthony Richardson is going to pick up a playbook on Monday and on Sunday turn into a 300-yard passer all of a sudden.
I don't think that either. I also think a change of scenery can do the body good.
Change of scenery in August or change of scenery in January?
Change of scenery in general. Like I think his time in Indy.
I see no 2025 success for him elsewhere. To me, the best case scenario is at the first sign of Daniel Jones having issues. Hell, this fan base might boo Daniel Jones when he runs out for the opening snap 2 Sundays from now.
I think that'd be more of an indictment on the front office, though, than Daniel Jones himself.
As soon as Daniel
I see what you're saying, Kevin. Yeah.
As soon as Daniel Jones screws up or gets hurt, Anthony Richardson is going in there.
Okay, so I do want to say this. What do you mean by screwed up? Because
I know Shane said there's no leash. He's the starter for the whole season. He said the same exact stuff about Joe Flacco last year.
Should we believe that?
I saw Schefter running with that yesterday. I'm like, Schefter, you're not that dumb.
No. I didn't really buy that either.
Come on.
I didn't buy that either.
Yes. Do I believe that, Daniel Jones is going to get a significant amount of time being the starting quarterback? Yes. I also realize a 17-game season is light years long. Light years long. And as James just pointed out, the Daniel Jones injury resume is not clean. So,
yeah, he's kind of been banged up in his career, too. I want to say he's missed like 20% of the games he was supposed to play in his career. So he's not like this picture-perfect
and that's what
Giants
fans, talking more with Giants people, they're like, if you go back to that 2022 season, Jones was a great runner in that year.
700 yards plus in that year.
Injuries have happened since, and he's not been the same runner. How willing of a runner is he? How much did that help him out in that 2022 season? As we sit here right now, I'd be stunned if Anthony Richardson didn't take another snap for the Colts. He's going to play in 2025, right? Didn't we do this debate yesterday? You guys said better chance, what was it, AFC Championship or better chance one quarterback starts all 17 games?
Yeah, I picked one quarterback starts all 17 games. And then my cop-out right there, Kevin, is you said Anthony taking a snap. He ain't got to start to take a snap. So, a couple kneel downs, in a blowout win, and I win that bet.
Here we go. I like this one. KJ from Brownsburg says, Daniel Jones sucks. Dan Jones is the future.
Dan Jones. Put him on the side of the building right now.
You clean that part up, too, because he said more. You added that a little bit.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
That's what I like about the text line, Mark. I can edit a little bit as we go here. Anthony Richardson is no longer the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones, or Dan Jones as KB likes to call him, will be the starting quarterback for this season. We heard that from Shane Steichen yesterday. We are getting lots of feedback on the fan text line this morning. Lots of feedback from folks who cover the NFL and the team. What was the team saying about this after practice yesterday, Kevin? What was their reaction to everything?
Yeah, I actually thought there were some candid comments in there, James. Maybe after the break we hit on maybe some AD Mitchell stuff, some Quentin Nelson stuff. I thought both of them had.
Yeah, KB buttered up Quentin Nelson very nice yesterday and got him to open up. And I was like, wow, that Kevin Bowen is a great interviewer.
No, I felt bad there because you and I were doing the, hey, who's going to ask the next question? I was like, okay, James, you go ahead. And Quentin Nelson treated you like.
Yeah, he stiff-armed me. It's okay.
Like that Kevin, porter potty treated me, and then I just got lucky that somehow he answered mine. But
Kevin showed his Notre Dame allegiance, and he's like, okay, I'll let you in a little bit.
I thought Nelson was really candid and really honest. It's frustrating to have, 8 quarterbacks in 7 and 8 years? I think that's right for Quentin Nelson's career.
I was going to say, just keep counting.
But at the same time, I thought AD Mitchell was like, I love Daniel Jones's work ethic, and it's very, very impressive. And Tyler Warren kind of echoed that. So,
yeah.
I think I said to you guys yesterday, I think the locker room is pretty split on this. I think there is like a genuine appreciation for what Daniel Jones is bringing, but there's also, for guys like Nelson, who've been in the locker room for a while, there's like a holy bleep, we're doing the same Children's Museum carousel once again.
I was going to say, don't you think that it's interesting that A.D. Mitchell and Tyler Warren, two young guys, think that it's fine, and the veteran guys are kind of like, okay.
What can A.D. Mitchell say that holds any merit for any quarterback discussion right now? Nothing.
Touche.
Good news for the Colts. James, we had a couple of guys returned from injury yesterday.
Yes, Kenny Moore was back from his knee injury. Bernard Raimann was back from his ankle injury, and Alec Pierce was out there back from his groin injury. But they also lost Sam Womack to what appeared to be a hamstring injury in 11-on-11. So that cornerback room, again, you get one guy to come back, a very important guy in Kenny Moore, but some of that depth, Samuel Womack, you kind of lose there. I think that he might miss some time.
I worry, too, for him for the season because he's one of those guys that was fighting for a position, too, right?
Yeah, I think that he was in the running to possibly start, week one. And I think that's why you bring in a guy like Xavier Howard, who had a nice PBU yesterday, only for Tyler Warren to still catch the football. So that was a bit conundrum there.
Some good news, too, for the Indiana Pacers. It was announced yesterday that Rick Carlisle, Kevin Bowen, has been given an extension and will remain the head coach for the Indiana Pacers for the foreseeable future. And I think we're all happy with that.
Yeah, obviously makes total sense. The definition of earning this. I think one thing that's impressive about Rick is, maybe this is an age stereotype, but I think times you get coaches in professional sports that have been around for a while, they have difficult evolving with the times. Rick Carlisle has more than evolved with the times. Even here when he took the Pacers job initially, the thought was Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner, and then it was like, oh boy, we got to reset. And they've done that. And obviously they've, adapted to a style that the rest of the NBA is like, man, should we do more of that? The player development has been there as well. So tremendous job by Rick Carlisle. And, there was years where he was coaching the Pacers to wins when they were scoring 75, and now he's coaching them to wins when they're scoring 120. So well-deserved by one of the best coaches in NBA history.
All right, across the hall, not so great news for the Indiana Fever. The injury bug continues to bite and bite hard. Sophie Cunningham, who went down with a knee injury this past weekend, had an MRI. It's an MCL problem, and James, she will not return for the Indiana Fever in 2025.
Yeah, she actually spoke about this on her podcast, and she was just saying how, oddly enough, she feels pretty positive about the situation and feels very loved by her teammates. And so we'll just see if the Fever can somehow continue to tread water and try to get into the playoffs. And then obviously the bigger news on that front is if and when CC, Caitlin Clark, returns.
All right, let's talk Major League Baseball. Mark Dykton and the Chicago Cubs not only won 6-4 in the first game of two against the Milwaukee Brewers, they came back and proved it by winning the second game 4-1 against the Milwaukee Brewers. In the first game, Will Castro had a 3-run shot. Game two, Michael Busch had a pair of RBIs. Also, guys getting home runs, singles in key moments.
Owen Casey, top prospect, looking pretty good yesterday. I'll take it.
All right, so they are now 7 games behind the Brewers in the National League Central.
Tough one today. Mizorowski, their young ace on the Brewers. They're going up against Colin Ray today, so a tough one today. Get another one, though. I'll start feeling really good.
All right, Cincinnati Reds also got a victory over the Los Angeles Angels. 6-4 was the final score there. Reds have won 3 straight games, and Nelvi Marte had a solo home run, his 10th of the year, couple of RBIs. And they're starting to play pretty good baseball, Kevin.
No shock there.
Yeah, they'll be coming for the Cubs. I'm telling you right now.
They'll be melting down by September. Don't worry.
That's not right. St. Louis Cardinals won again too. Nice day for the Central. They beat the Marlins by a score of 7-4. The Indians on the road in Syracuse, they beat the Mets by a score of 6-5 there. They will play again at 6:15 tonight in International League play. Anything else either one of you want to throw in?
CJ Carr in South Bend. That is the starting quarterback here for Marcus Freeman. 4 snaps in his collegiate career. This is the grandson of Lloyd Carr. Boy, the Notre Dame quarterback battle from a news cycle standpoint. I think if you follow the Colts quarterback battle, hell, I said it yesterday. I thought Shane would say Daniel Jones. I don't think you were stunned by yesterday's news. The Notre Dame quarterback battle had some tipsy what is it?
Tipsy-turvy?
Tipsy-turvy, thank you. Tipsy-turvy news throughout. Kenny Minchie at one point, CJ Carr. So it'll be CJ Carr.
I was all into Minchie mania, but...
You were?
Yeah, but take a car ride instead.
He's more of the runner. CJ Carr more of the thrower, if you want to look at it from a college football
all I know is every
terms.
time I turn around, it feels like Marcus Freeman is recruiting another incredible incredible player.
The son of a Hall
Notre
of
Dame.
Famer usually is what it seems to be.
A lot
going
of
on.
former NFL talent, by the way. So we get Iowa State, Kansas State, and Dublin.
Yep.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I can't imagine Ames, Iowa, and Manhattan, Kansas drinking a whole lot of Guinness.
They'll drink whatever's in front
I was
of them.
going to say, that's usually how it goes.
You ever been to Manhattan, Kansas? They'll know what to do.
Well, trust me, they drink. I'm just not saying they're drinking a lot of Guinness there. I'm going to guess this is their first, real confrontation with the old Guinness. It's a great game. These are two ranked teams.
Look forward to it.
I
It's
like
college
it.
football. I'm ready. Coming up in a moment, Kevin, we'll hear from some guys in the locker room. What did they have to say about the decision made by Shane Steichen yesterday as Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback heading into the 2025 season for the Indianapolis Colts?
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Getting a lot of reaction today from the Indianapolis Colts' decision to elevate Daniel Jones to the starting spot at quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts coming up this year. And I think the frustration that I had at the very beginning of the show, like, I'm not anti-Daniel Jones, and I want the Colts to do well. It just feels like it's the same thing, Groundhog Day, again and again and again. It just feels like this team never really gets out of its own way over the last decade since the Andrew Luck retirement. When they're talking about the quarterback position, they had some success with Phillip Rivers. He decided not to come back for a second year, and they've never really been able to figure it out since, Kevin. It doesn't feel like they're getting any closer now. They're taking a chance on a guy that gives them a very stable, high floor, but you got to find out once and for all, and maybe this is the end, but don't you feel like you got to find out once and for all if Anthony Richardson really is your guy?
I'd like to fight this human here in the YouTube chat.
Whoa.
Saying Marcus Freeman, next Colts head coach.
Okay, understandable fight.
You stop that right now, Benjamin. You think Carly Gordon would be more impressed by a 10-7 season with Dan Jones or 8-9 and Anthony Richardson taking a step forward?
10-7, make the playoffs.
You think she lives in that narrow of a short-term mindset?
To a degree, yes, because she said they want to win. So, winning.
See, I feel like she has not gone with the wins and losses thing. Like, she did that again Saturday, asked about wins and losses. Every time wins and losses gets brought up, she then counters it with saying, like, it's about the pursuit to be the best.
Well, yeah, and 10-7 is better, not best, but better than 8-9.
Right, but if she's saying the pursuit to be the best, do you read into that? You've got to look more long-term. You've got to look more big picture. You can't just say, hey, life in this 2025 bubble is Daniel Jones at 10-7. That's impressive to me. I'm bringing everybody back.
Not really. I truly believe, and I don't want to speak for her. I can't speak for her. I don't have the money or the requisites to do that sort of thing. But in my mind, if I'm in her shoes, I think that trying to be the best is trying to go out there and win as many games as you can, no matter who's the quarterback. And I say that because it's not like you've had success recently. You're 4 years out of the playoffs, looking at a 5-year drought. If you get into the playoffs, I think that you look at that as a positive step in the right direction. And you just take it from there and figure out the rest.
So 10-7 with Daniel Jones is bring everybody back.
No, I'm not saying you go that far. I'm just saying that you roll with Daniel Jones, and if he gets you 10 wins, then you assess it from there.
But then you're sitting there at 10. Let's say you go 10-7 and you make a wild card appearance. Here's a guy that made $14 million as a starting quarterback in the NFL this year. You're not coming back for $14 million, so what deal do you make? Because we saw what happened to the Giants when they had their 2022 season.
Great
Gave him a
question.
4-year deal for like $160 million, and it wrecked the franchise.
Not a lot of things make you shiver in the current weather situation we have here in Indy, but that statement right there from Jeff Rickard will make you shiver.
Kevin, you spoke a moment ago about guys in the locker room and some of the statements that they made, and you had made reference to, both of you, to A.D. Mitchell talking about the quarterback change. Here's what he had to say in the locker room when asked about it.
Smart football player, very demanding at quarterback. He'll kind of, tell you what, he wants you to do, and it's an open dialogue there. So his work ethic is phenomenal. So just looking forward to carrying that through the season.
So you were standing there, James. What did you make of some of those comments?
That's what you have to say when you're a second-year receiver who hasn't done anything in the NFL.
What was he saying non-verbally is my question, or was he? No?
I mean, he just looked like he was trying to say the right things with a bunch of cameras in his face on the eve or right after they announced a huge decision for the team. But, I mean, what else is A.D. Mitchell going to say?
Hey, if Daniel Jones heard that, he rewarded him an hour later on the practice field. That
Exactly.
was a big old deep ball Daniel Jones threw right on the money to A.D. Mitchell. Nothing like A.D. Mitchell yesterday at practice. So for those unfamiliar,
That was hilarious.
we are allowed to watch all of practice for this week. Basically, it's training camp without fans, and we're back at the team facility. So what, James? There's 6 of us out there, something like that? I
Yeah.
don't know. And poor Casey Valier from the Colts Radio Network. He happened to be the one closest to A.D. Mitchell in the end zone when A.D. makes the catch. And A.D. makes the catch, great catch, and he's looking for the camera.
Yeah.
And cameras are put down at this point. You're not allowed to film any of the 11-on-11 periods. And he just stares at Casey Valier. I mean, I think if eyes could kill, Casey Valier would be in 6 pieces here on this Wednesday morning.
I think Casey Valier should have dapped him up. He was looking for something. Some sort of energy, some sort of exclamation point. But honestly, part of me was like, maybe this is the problem here, AD. Just make the play and go back to the huddle. And
then
do
I think
it
you
on
looked over at
Sundays.
Nick Cross, who's watching practice because he's injured right now. And I think he said some reference to Nick Cross about, I'm going to leave the ball here for you or something along those lines.
And then Nick Cross just like waved him off. It was kind of like the most brotherly thing I've seen where it's like this guy, he can never just act normal. But it honestly was a nice play.
Yeah, a couple of practice notes from yesterday if anybody cares. I don't know. How many passes do you think Richardson threw? 6?
Yeah, not many.
Now, so that's life with him now.
That's development.
Yeah, I was going to say,
team.
the
That's
11 splits and me tracking every pass, I'll be honest with you all. I did pay attention to practice yesterday, but I wasn't tracking every pass anymore because it doesn't matter.
Largely had a good day. One ball could have been picked, but largely had a good day. Again,
That's the one
ball,
that Tyler Warren still caught?
Yes.
Yeah, that was impressive. By Tyler Warren, that is, because it just seems like whenever the ball's in his area, he makes a play.
Xavier Howard, first-team reps right away. So the 32-year-old corner, who I think we'll hear from today. Yesterday was obviously pretty quarterback-centric. He's right into the fire as a starting corner for you again. I think Ashton Doolin, Samuel Womack, we mentioned that earlier. Both of them got banged up, but you did have guys back to practice in the form of Kenny Moore, Alec Pierce, Bernard Ryman. James, I'd say the biggest injured name right now for me that I'm curious about week 1 is Josh Downs. Where's Josh Downs at from that hamstring injury he suffered in the joint practice with Green Bay? We saw Josh Downs miss week 1 and 2 last year. You lose both those games. 1-possession games. How do things look right now with Josh Downs for week 1? Because I think Downs, I think Warren, I think those guys benefit, from Daniel Jones being the starter there. Where's Josh Downs at come September 7th?
More on the decision to start Daniel Jones coming up in just a moment. Rick Carlisle has a new contract. We'll get into all of it and check the fan text line next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
One of my good buddies leaves me a voicemail yesterday saying he's been a Colts fan since day one and a season ticket holder at times. And he's like, I don't think it's really that big of a deal one way or the other. He said, I don't think Daniel Jones, and he likes to play on some of the apps, Mark. He would put the over-under on Daniel Jones starts at 10.5. What do you think of that?
I actually don't hate that line, but
yeah,
let Mark
I don't know if you can bet on it, but yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I think I saw their win total did go up a game in the Daniel Jones decision.
See, this is what Carly Arsay Gordon was looking at.
And I think it jumped to 7.5.
So the over-under on Daniel Jones starts, you said 10.5. So that means Anthony Richardson would get 6 starts at least?
That's what it sounds like.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
it's not a very long leash, I guess. For...
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't sound.
I think it was more injury-based than anything.
So can we get into that a little bit as far as the leash goes? How long is the leash realistically in your mind? Because, again, I cannot buy Shane Steichen telling us it's for the whole season. He said that, for Anthony last year, then he went to Joe Flacco. Then he said it for Joe Flacco, then he went back to Anthony. So I just can't buy that anymore. But what's realistic? If they start off 0-3, is he still going to be saying he's the guy?
Yeah, when you said that out loud, I probably said a month was kind of my first thought. Honestly, the schedule sets up, I'd argue, beautifully for Daniel Jones.
Oh, really?
You get an extremely banged-up secondary in week 1. Miami's had a slew of injuries.
True. Okay.
You're home to start. Your first road game is against a rookie quarterback.
Okay.
In the Tennessee Titans. And if I'm not mistaken, that schedule actually is right behind you, James. I don't have my glasses on. Is that the Raiders in week 5 at home?
That is the Raiders.
So, I mean, think about that. I mean, you're probably going to be favored. I mean, you're probably favored 3 of those 5, 4. Yeah. So, I think it's very, very favorable. I actually think the schedule is a little bit more backloaded. Like, you don't play Houston until twice late in the year. I think you got a trip to Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, late in the year.
San Francisco.
Well, this is you're missing.
Kansas City.
Kevin, you're missing what usually happens around here. You're not going to win week 1 because you never do. So let's start there.
Can you imagine if he wins week 1? You'll have the most babies named Dan in the history of the state.
But I do think it's, to your point, in all seriousness, I agree with the Dolphins' assessment, but I still think it's just something about these Colts' weird streaks that they have where they can't do certain things. They can't, win the division. They can't win the season over. They can't win in Jacksonville. So does that change? I think week 2 is a big game. The Broncos, I think that Sean Payton has shown the ability throughout his career to make life hell for the opposing quarterback, and especially quarterbacks who are not good. Like that I think will be certainly a factor. And then you got the Rams coming, you're going to the Rams in week 4. So.
Right, which, I mean, I think on paper that's a very hard game. Yeah. Obviously, Stafford's health will be a big
honestly, though, as you've laid that out, I don't hate that schedule. And if you're Daniel Jones, you have to believe, like, you know what? I'm looking at the first 4 weeks thinking we should be 2-2.
Cardinals at home the week after the Raiders.
Yeah.
I mean, So I think it benefits him greatly right out of the gate.
After the bye, Kevin, it's at Kansas City, home against the Texans, at Jacksonville, at Seattle, home against the Niners, home against Jaguars, and at Texans.
Yeah, that's a different schedule. They're late. So, I think that's good for Daniel Jones getting off to a better start.
I thought this one from Greg was interesting on the fan text line. None of this is surprising if you take Shane's 4 pillars of success that he mentioned on day 1. Which quarterback has the advantage to each one? Steichen. The pillars are character, even. Preparation, advantage, Jones, from reports. Consistency, advantage, Jones. Relentlessness, advantage, Jones. And he says the AR tap out will haunt him forever. I think from Shane Steichen's eyes, it's true. And again, my frustration at the very beginning is I still think there's development that only comes through playing. And I think we have seen flashes from Anthony Richardson. It's not like he's been a complete bust. The man's 8-7 as a starting quarterback. Does he have problems? Yes. Does he have issues? Yes, we know that. I also talk about the fact that he's very young, and I think he's still got time to learn. But my biggest fear for the Colts is they end up right back where the Giants were in 2022, where you have a decent season, you make a playoffs, and then you reward the guy with a big contract because of all he's done in the future, and then you're right back to where you started again. That's my biggest fear long term.
Very fair. Very fair. You imagine going to Mars? Let's say you went to Mars in 2015 and you just returned yesterday. And someone comes up to you
Why would
and
I
goes,
be coming back?
And so someone comes up to you and goes, James Boyd, the Indianapolis Colts are now the Cleveland Browns of quarterbacks. And the college football world can't stop debating IU's non-conference schedule.
Woo! I feel like I'm in Alien Earth. I watched the first episode, by the way.
That's where we're at, right?
I got sucked into a wormhole and I'm in an alternate universe. That's what's happening.
So the sports world is being dominated by the Colts carousel at quarterback and IU scheduling Howard and Kennesaw State.
I do think you make a good point, though, when it comes to where this Colts franchise is versus where it was. Because obviously when I was growing up, it was Peyton Manning ruining my childhood in the Super Bowl against the Bears. And Mark, I still got beef with him over that. I think if I ever see Peyton Manning, I'm going to say, you should cut through another pick, after that first one there early in the game. But neither here nor there. On a more serious note, this is who the Colts have been outside of the Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck eras. And I say Andrew Luck with kind of an asterisk because it was so short. But, talking to Mike Chappell, the dean who's been here for so long, they haven't had great quarterback play outside of those two guys since moving to Indianapolis. And so that's what you're kind of up against. That's what you're measured against if you're the quarterback who comes here. It's not necessarily can you just be okay, which is what they're trying to ask Daniel Jones to do, but the people around here are saying, no, we had guys. We had dudes. And that's what we miss. And it's getting further and further away because if you look at a 10-year-old, when's the last time they've seen like really great quarterback play that was sustained? I'll give Phillip Rivers his flowers in 2020, but it hasn't been good since Andrew Luck left. And I find it just so like serendipitous that my guy Zach Kiefer drops a story on Andrew Luck. What's the latest on him? He's loving his life in Palo Alto. And then, by the way, he's only 35 still, 36. And then a couple days later, here's Daniel Jones, your new starting quarterback, who, by the way, we're hoping can stabilize us because we haven't found an answer since the other guy left and went to Palo Alto. Like, that is fascinating stuff to me. What a conundrum.
Jalen does not like the fact that I take shots every once in a while at Notre Dame, mostly just to have fun with you. But he says, need I remind Jeff, James, and Mark that Notre Dame helps keep this state relevant? So y'all may want to consider talking about them more instead of waiting until 9:53. Seth.
Look, I probably count myself a unhealthily large Notre Dame fan. Jalen, come on now. We don't need to be on that big of a high horse here.
And I have nothing. I have nothing but respect and
I think we give
love
Notre
for
Dame
Marcus Freeman
the proper attention that they deserve.
That was resounding, right there.
Well, do we really need to be talking about Notre Dame football for 3 hours? People don't even know South Bend is in Indiana.
We'll get the national perspective from Tom Pelissero coming up in a moment as we continue on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And Jeff.
Daniel Jones will be our starting quarterback this season.
I understand this league and how it works, and you've got to perform at a high level week in and week out.
At the end of the day, we all knew somebody was going to have to be on this end of the stick, and it was me.
A big part of it is, he's been injured, and I think that's part of it. And when you're not practicing and playing, it's hard to, go out there and do the things you want to do.
I feel like I did a decent job in improving, but there's still a lot more I can do.
You guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for.
His work ethic is phenomenal. Just looking forward to carrying that through the season.
You look around the league and see just like the consistency of having a quarterback behind you that's like been the franchise player for years and years and years, and getting to build that chemistry with that quarterback year after year, there is an advantage too.
I just got to trust in the Lord, and I got to be where I am right now. Right now, I'm an Indianapolis Colts.
If Daniel Jones is the Week 1 starter, it's not going to be because he won the job. It's going to be because Anthony Richardson did not hold on to it.
I have no confidence in Richardson. I have no confidence in Jones. Until I see anything of consistency, I don't have confidence in anybody.
This league is a year-to-year league, and what do I feel is best for the Indianapolis Colts in 2025? And I got to make these decisions. That's what I get paid to do, and I got to go with what I feel is right.
And on we go. The next chapter starts now for the Indianapolis Colts as they go into 2025 with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback. And we've been yapping about this all day long and listening to the text line and some phone callers. And we'll get some national perspective now as we turn to the Payless Liquors hotline. And from NFL Network, Tom Pelissero, terrific reporter there, joins us now on the Fan Morning Show. Good morning, Tom. It's never boring for you. There's always somebody in a quarterback controversy somewhere in America for you, right?
Well, we're on the pretty short list at this point of the competitions in camp, but you're right. We'll be a week or two in the season, and people will be calling for somebody to get benched somewhere. This one was really going all the way back to the Combine when Chris Ballard said it's going to be an open competition. You knew that they were going to try to bring in somebody to really and truly push Anthony Richardson. The unfortunate part in all this is I don't know that you ever really got the type of competition that you would have wanted. We all know Anthony Richardson, what he needs above all else is reps. He needs time on task. And for a guy who had battled injuries his first 2 years to come in and have the shoulder issue in the spring and then get the start in the first preseason game and dislocate his pinky right out of the gate, it felt like a continuation. I don't think that by any stretch this is the end of Anthony Richardson. There's plenty of other quarterbacks who, have not been able to put it all together in the first couple of years, and they get traded or they get cut and they go someplace else. And we're still talking about Trey Lance. Great preseason that he had with the Chargers. It's like, year 5 or 6 or whatever it is for Trey Lance at this point. There's no reason that we can't, be talking about Anthony Richardson somewhere down the line. But, the guy needs to play. He needs to practice. He didn't get the opportunity to do that, and the Colts just aren't in a position where they can allow him to get that time on task in regular season games where, wins and jobs are at stake.
Tom, James Boyd here from The Athletic, and I enjoy your work as well. You certainly keep me busy like the rest of us in this reporting world. And I do want to pivot a bit back to what you just said. With Anthony, there is hope that he can still become something, but the narrative that the Colts are trying to push right now is that they haven't given up on him. There's a future for him in Indianapolis, but how realistic do you think that is, considering that he's a now former top 5 pick that's been benched twice in 9 months? Those players usually don't work out with the same franchise, so how realistic is it for him to work out in Indianapolis still?
Well, let's start with the reality, James, that, quarterbacks get hurt, and certainly I don't wish that on Daniel Jones at all, but the odds are, over half the teams in the league use multiple quarterbacks in the season. We may see Anthony Richardson playing for the Colts this year. And quite frankly, given where he's at in his career, the best opportunity for him to show something in 2025 is going to be with the Colts, not getting traded next week and going to a team and a coach and a scheme that he's not familiar with. And so, big picture, what does this mean for Anthony Richardson? I would go back to this. You remember how this all unfolded back in 2023 when they had a couple of quarterbacks on the roster, and again, it was a real competition. The late Jim Irsay, came out and said, hey, Anthony's going to be, we look forward to Anthony Richardson handing off to Jonathan Taylor. That was kind of the first time that anybody was like, oh, Richardson's going to play now. That wasn't really, I don't want to say the plan, but it wasn't really the thought process. It was, hey, you're going to get this guy on the field. Maybe he's playing goal line, short yardage, packages, but not to be an every game starter. And obviously, he played, I believe, 4 games that year, and he got hurt in 3 of them. And so, ultimately we didn't see a ton of him on the field. But what is happening right now with Anthony Richardson at age 24, younger than Tyler Shuck, younger than some of the other rookies who are in the league right now, this is probably what should happen for him in 2023, which is getting the opportunity to be behind a veteran who, say what you will about Daniel Jones, like he's won games in the league. He's won a playoff game in the league. He started a whole bunch. Be behind somebody who's going to be a good guy in the room, and you can watch and learn a little bit here. Anthony Richardson got put in a really tough spot. I don't think it's unfair because there is no fair in the NFL, but it was a really difficult spot of, hey, and I get, why you got there, which was this guy needs to play, so let's put him out there. But, in hindsight and even in foresight, what should have been the plan initially here. And so the best thing for Anthony Richardson, of course, now is that he truly can sit back for a while and watch and learn and get better in practice and run the scout team. And who knows, maybe taking all those scout team reps in a few months here, by staying healthy with this point in his NFL career, maybe that puts him in a better position than when his next opportunity comes. He's better for it. And much like Bryce Young last year with the Panthers, he got benched after the second game. I mean, that was the number 1 pick in the draft in that same year, and then once Bryce Young got another opportunity because Andy Dalton was in a car accident of all things, he was more ready. But a big part of that was Bryce Young leading through, continuing to be that guy, working behind the scenes and being ready, not knowing when his opportunity was going to.
Definitely echo what James said. Tom Pelissero does great work, NFL Network, where you can find him, Insider there. You can see him on the Insiders. That's weeknights, 7 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. Tom, we saw Derek Jackson, Anthony's agent, reach out to Stephen Holder, covers Colts for ESPN, and mention they are unhappy about this situation. Not going all the way to the trade request. We had Stephen on earlier, and he mentioned he didn't feel like maybe that was the most far-fetched thing that could come down the road from the Richardson camp. What do you think the market would look like? Do you compare it all to Trey Lance's market a few years ago? What do you think potential compensation could be for Anthony Richardson?
I believe Trey Lance went for a 4th-round pick, and it was right around this same time when the Cowboys traded for him. I think that it would probably be a similar type of a thing. Trey Lance, it was the same deal, which was he hadn't played a ton of football. He'd played more. He'd started more games in North Dakota State, but just hadn't played a whole lot. He had accuracy issues, like Anthony Richardson has not been the most accurate quarterback so far in his career, and he's been hurt a lot. So it's probably in a similar type of a vein. It's probably a mid-round type of a pick. And the question that you have to ask yourself, if you are, Chris Ballard or Shane Steichen or Carly Ursay, is that worth it? Trey Lance, the other piece of this was when the 49ers traded Trey Lance, they had Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy was going to be the guy. That was Kyle's guy that, it was very apparent he was going to be the starter. When you have, another guy who's a former high draft pick sitting behind, that puts more pressure on the guy who's starting. It can create a lot of questions. I don't know that you have those same types of questions with Daniel Jones, who, by the way, is only 28 himself. But it's not like, Daniel Jones is 100% the answer, for the next 10 years, like the 49ers felt about Purdy. You hope that he is. You hope that maybe you fell into something on a 1-year, $14 million contract and you get your guy and it settles all these questions. But I don't think that the same dynamic exists here in terms of the pressure on the Colts to do something and to move on from the player. I just don't think that exists. So, we'll see. My understanding from talking to people yesterday is that's not the thought process for the team. I understand, I've known Derek a long time. I understand, the frustration for him, the frustration for Anthony Richardson, but I just go back to this. As much as you might be mad about it and you might think, this isn't, the trust has been fractured or whatever that quote was that he gave the Holder. But at the same time, realistically, if Anthony Richardson sees the field in 2025, he's better off seeing the field in Indy again, because going someplace new, man, being a quarterback, there's some positions you can get traded, even in the season, and you can go out and play that week. Quarterback is not the spot
you want to be doing that. The Baker Mayfield going to the Rams and starting 3 days later and rebooting his career, those situations are few and far between. For Richardson, just continuing to, be on top of this thing, knowing that it was a close competition with Daniel Jones and being able just to kind of push forward within that context, that to me seems like the better outcome here. We'll see what levers, if any, he and his agents decide to pull here.
Tom just ruining my childhood dreams there with, the Madden. I'm thinking of Madden. I just drop players in and have my franchise. It worked back then, Tom, but
it worked for Baker. Baker's now a Pro Bowl quarterback. Like, it's the wildest story ever. I think they claimed him on a Monday and he started on a Thursday. That one I'll never get over.
My dad's
there's not a lot of those.
No, along those lines, my dad's a diehard Raiders fan. I never let him forget that game. I'm like, you let a guy come into your house and beat you on like a couple of days rest and literally like, a couple of backyard plays. But going back to the Colts for a second, and I really would appreciate your perspective on this. So the decision is Daniel Jones, and obviously they have to feel confident enough to make that decision to make him QB1. But within that, Tom, how much pressure do you think this regime just put on itself to basically bet on Daniel Jones? Like, how much leash do they have left or, goodwill or grace should they get if this doesn't work out, when it comes to Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen?
Well, I think that a part of the reason, and I know that Shane talked about this is a decision made for 2025. It's not about the future. But you heard the words from Shane. It's about consistency. It's about communication. It's about getting in the right play and making the right checks. That's all the way of saying, they know what they're getting in Daniel Jones. They know, the best way to put it might be this. Does Daniel Jones scare you if you're a defense? Maybe not, but he doesn't scare you as his own coaches either. Anthony Richardson scares the opposing defense, but he also might scare his own coaches. So do you want the known commodity? Do you want the guy confident hey, here's what Daniel's limitations are. Here's the things he does well. We're going to build around those things he does well. Or do you have Anthony Richardson who's going to make the splash plays, but you just don't know, from play in and play out, is he also going to make the big mistake? If you feel like your job is on the line, and I think that it's fair to say any coach who's entering year 3 and has not yet made the playoffs, any GM, frankly, that's been in the job as long as Chris has, there's a level of pressure. There's no doubt about it. And then you add into the context, you have a new controlling owner in the situation too. There's a lot of different dynamics here where certainly you have to be taking those things into consideration. But to me, what you need to prove right now, if you're Chris and Shane, is just, hey, the rest of this roster is pretty good. And whether Anthony Richardson ultimately works out or he doesn't, we've built a pretty strong team. The only way that you find that and show that is that you get somebody in that you trust to run your operation and get the ball into the hands of your playmakers. Anthony Richardson still might get there someday. Again, he's younger than some of the guys who got drafted this year, but he's not there yet. I don't think that that's a secret. He's just not there yet. And, so you put in the guy who you trust. Hey, we at least know what we're getting with this player. Let's build around his strengths. He's going to process. He's going to get us into the right play. And you roll from there. Time will tell if this ends up being the right bet. But to me, the other part of this too, and I had people within the league say this to me when they were talking about that quarterback competition along the lines of, well, you got to roll with Richardson first, and then if he fails, you go to Daniel Jones. I actually thought the opposite. And going back to the spring, everything I heard was it was probably going to be Daniel Jones. And the thinking is you're not going to get a spark from Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is the steady guy. The spark comes if this thing isn't looking good enough, and then you put in this 6'5", 240-pound cannon-armed dude. That's where the spark comes from. And again, I would just go back to Anthony Richardson. What he's got to do from this point forward is pour everything into being ready for that moment, because you don't know if that's coming in the first half of week 1 or it's not coming till December. But it's coming, and if you are able to show some of those flashes, whether your future's in Indianapolis or somewhere else, that's what's going to drive you to get your next opportunity in the NFL.
Tom, thanks for your time this morning. We appreciate it. I know you're back out to some other camps, but we'll look for you on NFL Network and see you down the road.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
Tom Pelissero, NFL Network on the Payless Liquors hotline. This is been looking at some of the texts coming in while we were listening to Tom, and this one's interesting. Anonymous says, it's just ironic that Ballard drafted AR to save his own job and then gave us endless lip service about we need to be patient. And now Steichen has failed to even fix his cadence and is throwing AR under the bus to now save his own job. This front office doesn't care what happens as long as they keep getting checks.
You know what? I was thinking about something along those lines yesterday driving home from the complex, and I thought back to, James, I think it was your first show, or one of your first couple, at the Combine when we had Chris Ballard on the show.
What a chaotic time, but yes.
And asked Ballard something to the effect of, why do you feel like you're getting a 9th year? And he referenced the conversation organizationally they had with Jim Irsay, the hiring of Shane Steichen, the drafting of Anthony Richardson, and the thought was, we're going to truly reset this thing. We're going to create a new window where we have got to be patient. We're going to try something here. And we have got to be patient with this. And basically, the thought there was this is now going to be, a 3-year period of evaluating a first-time head coach in Shane Steichen, one of the rawest quarterbacks we've ever seen taken in round one of any NFL draft, in Anthony Richardson. And that's going to allow the leash to be longer. I mean, that's pretty much what Ballard said. And now here we are, and I saw Paul pointed out on the text line, the Colts asked all of us to be patient and didn't practice the patience they asked for. Which I think is an interesting point. I don't know if I'm
that is interesting.
All the way there with Paul. I think you're maybe letting Anthony Richardson off the hook a little bit too much with that, but it gets back to my general premise of the day, and it's an organizational failure from top down in drafting, believing in him on and off the field, et cetera, and then obviously the quarterback himself hasn't done himself any favors at all.
So then I do want to look at this too, and this is the part where now that you've made that point about Richardson, they made their point to turn to Daniel Jones, and what I'll push back on, and obviously I could talk to Tom forever, honestly, as much as
Tom's a good dude.
It was on his Twitter page and things like that, but the thing that bothers me about the Daniel Jones steadiness and consistency narrative is that has not been his career.
Correct.
I think people look at completion percentage and they're like, oh, he's just steady, he's consistent. He's played 70 games in the NFL. He's had 73 turnovers in those 70 games. So why do I think that he's this consistent quarterback? He's had one consistent year in his career. And that, to me, is part of why I push back so hard against it. I'm not saying that Anthony should just be the QB1 and you roll with it. If you change positions, that's totally fine. But when I ask Shane Steichen straight up, what can you turn to make you believe you can win with this guy, and you have to bring up a season from 3 years ago, that does not invoke much confidence in me or the fan base, I would imagine. Like, that's my only thing. Like, what are we doing with this Daniel Jones narrative? People are sitting up here saying, like, this guy is the most steady guy ever. No, he is not.
Yeah, it's like...
He is not.
Yesterday I tried to make the analogy of whoever you choose in this quarterback decision, it's two 16-year-olds that you're allowing to drive your car. Daniel Jones maybe has only been in 3 wrecks, but Anthony Richardson's been in 4.
I choose Grant.
That's what you're doing with this.
Grant Rickard.
He's getting well.
You got
he's
the keys,
good.
Brother.
He's getting good.
I know
You're
we got
trusting without the break too. You don't have the teacher break on the other side.
Right. I mean, again, both of them have sketchy past, to go with James's point. And it's funny. I went on SiriusXM yesterday evening, and I feel like, James, when the national audience speaks to you on this subject, you hear more of that right there about the Daniel Jones New York career. Like, basically the question was to me, hey, why did Shane Steichen make this move? And I said, line of scrimmage operationally feels like Daniel Jones, he can trust more. There's a consistency factor to Daniel Jones. And I was met with, was the New York Giants career truly watched? And that's where I think Shane lives in the 2022 bubble. This goes back to a conversation we had earlier today. Shane Steichen was in Philly in 2022. So that means he saw the Giants firsthand for 2 games, obviously, but saw them a lot in film breakdowns and things like that. That was when Daniel Jones was at his best. Well, in 2023, where was Shane Steichen? Here. 2024, where was Shane Steichen? Here. What was Daniel Jones doing? Going
Not
3-13 as a quarterback and getting benched by the New York Giants and being run out of town. So that does give me a little nervousness of, man, Shane's pulling out, franchise record and completion percentage for the New York Giants. And I'm like, dude, in the NFL years, that's a long, long time ago. So resurrecting that, I don't know if that's a given.
In those games against Philadelphia, by the way, he was, I'll have to look this up. No, they got, I'll have to, what they're giving me is not what I want to see right now. But I'll
save
look up
it for the other
games.
side.
Yeah, I'll save it for the other side. In the meantime, let's get to a check down.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Well, Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. That was the proclamation of Shane Steichen yesterday. He told each and every one of us why he had made that decision.
All right, I'll start off by letting everyone know that Daniel Jones will be our starting quarterback this season. I thought the competition in training camp was great by both of those guys. I thought they both competed really hard, and it was good to see them cheering for each other and battling the way they did. And you guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for. And really the operation at the line of scrimmage, the checks, the protection, the ball placement, the completion percentage, I think all that played a factor in it. I think Daniel did a great job doing that, and I think AR has made strides in that area. But I do feel that he still needs to continue to develop in those areas. And I had a chance to talk to both of them this morning. They were both great. AR was great. He knows that he still needs to develop and learn in those areas, and he knows that he's one play away. Let those guys know, let the team know this morning. Team's very supportive of Daniel, but also supportive of AR and his new role, and he's got to attack it the right way, and then we'll go from there.
All right, so it's on to Daniel Jones. Some good news, though, yesterday. Kevin Bowen for the Colts. They got 3 starters back off of injury.
Yeah, very important guys. Alec Pierce, Kenny Moore, Bernard Ryman, all back to practice. I still think the injury questions are there for roster cuts coming in 6 days. We should note Saturday's preseason game. Do not expect anyone of note to play in that game. I'm a lot confused why Anthony Richardson wouldn't play in that preseason game. But nonetheless, it's going to be Riley Leonard and Jason Bean Saturday down there in Cincinnati. And it sounds like a whole lot of threes action there for the preseason finale for the Colts.
And Daniel Jones did have one big splash play yesterday with everybody's favorite A.D. Mitchell, right?
Yeah, I would say your favorite, A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah,
really a lot more
let's
where
go.
that came from. If any of your predictions on him are going to come true. But no, in all seriousness, it was a nice play by A.D. Mitchell. But as everyone always reminds when I tweet those things out, do it on game days.
All right, so let's check out the Indiana Pacers. They had some positive news yesterday that we're all happy with. Rick Carlisle gets an extension after leading the team to within 1 game of an NBA championship. Player development you talked about earlier, Kevin, everything else, no details with the contract, but it's good to know that he's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I call him Rick Racks because he got them racks, baby. He got that money, and he deserves it after helping that team reach its first finals appearance in 25 years. So hats off to Rick Carlisle. He'll be sticking around. And honestly, it is remarkable the way he's adapted his coaching style and evolved through the years. And I don't think a lot of coaches have been able to do that, which is why he likely is going to be in the Hall of Fame someday.
Racks, but no disrespect to rats, correct? Isn't
Exactly.
that what he
I
said
like
to us
that.
Last
Kevin
Wednesday
Boone with
there.
a couple of bars. Okay, brother.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle set them one up for me there. I just simply hit it out of the park. I said this in the opening hour. What Rick Carlisle has meant to the Pacers, what Matt Painter has meant to Purdue, they deserve the cherry on top of the title. I just think it's those 2 individuals have given the program in West Lafayette, the franchise here in Indy, so much joy with their fan bases and have had to overcome a lot. Mainly injuries, obviously in Rick's case, the first iteration, the brawl. They've taken, again, the franchise of the Pacers, the program with Purdue to heights that, those fan bases maybe thought they would never see or never see again. And I think it'd be pretty cool for both of them here as, I'm not going to act like they're both, walking up the 18th hole, but as they kind of reach latter stages of their careers, that they do find that elusive championship for both of them.
All right, let's check out the other side of the facility over there, the Indiana Fever, with some news. Not the greatest. Sophie Cunningham is out for the rest of the year with an MCL problem in that injured knee that she suffered this past weekend. She will not be back this year. She is just an energy spark plug for that team, and was always providing something positive. So it's just another knock in what has been injury after injury after injury, JB.
Yeah, it's literally a really tough stretch for the Fever. That is their third season-ending injury this month. Sophie Cunningham joins Ari McDonald and Sydney Colson as two other guards that are now lost for the season. So it's tough for them. They're just trying to tread water to get to the playoffs, and obviously everyone's just kind of waiting and seeing if and when Caitlin Clark will potentially return.
All right, well, we'll find out a little bit more. They'll practice today, and then they play again on Friday. We'll have more details for you as we get closer and closer to that. Major League Baseball yesterday, the Cubs swept the Brewers 6-4 in the first, 4-1 in the second. It was the Reds getting their third straight win over the Angels. 6-4 was the final score there. St. Louis beat the Miami Marlins by a score of 7-4. And yes, there's a starting quarterback named also up in the northern part of the state in South Bend. What's that all about?
CJ Carr will be taking over for Riley Leonard there for Marcus Freeman. Seemed like a pretty intense back and forth between him and Kenny Minchie. Carr, a little bit more of the decorated high school recruit there, redshirt freshman. And yes, he is the grandson of Lloyd Carr. So talk about, house divided maybe a little bit there. But yes, quite the opener at Miami. Week 1, you don't ease into it. Texas A&M week 2. That's a little different than Daniel Jones's opening situation here in Indy. So, yes, C.J. Carr, the quarterback. And what do we have left? Is it just the Saints in the NFL?
Yes, they are the last team standing when it comes to not
Who is that battle? Tyler Shuck and who?
Spencer Rattler.
Gosh, Rattler.
The former Netflix star of, what's the show? QB1 Beyond the Lights, I think it was the name of the show.
Yeah, started at Oklahoma, ended up in South Carolina, I think.
Yeah, Notre Dame played him in the bowl game, if I remember correctly. You guys see the LIV Golf rankings from this weekend?
Did not happen to catch
you were asking the wrong person.
What rabbit hole were you going down last night?
Saw that they had, let me make sure I get this right here. I don't want to make sure that I miss the numbers here. I want to say it was 420,000 viewing on, now this is Big Fox, viewing on Fox on Sunday for their final round. The PGA Tour had 3.5 million. So 3.5 million for the PGA Tour with that Scotty Scheffler win. The Sebastian Munoz win, 426,000.
See, here's the thing, though, with LIV. Did Sebastian Munoz win or did John Rahm win?
Yeah, that was kind of confusing, which the PGA Tour can kind of get confusing with that, too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to totally blame LIV for that. But, yeah, it was a bit confusing there. It's like John Rahm's dumping milk on his head. It was like, wait, didn't Sebastian Munoz just win in a playoff?
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll have more reactions and feedback on the fan text line.
I got one more Richardson thought I want to throw your way.
All right, we'll do that next as we continue on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Look, I know that the 2022 season was okay for Daniel Jones. The Giants went 9-6-1. When he started 16 games. He was 9-6-1 in those games. They played a couple of playoff games. They were 1-1. He was not great in either of those playoff games. He was okay. Actually, he was okay in the first one. I shouldn't say that, but that's been an outlier. 2019, he was 3-9. 2020, they were 5-9. 2021, he was 4-7 as a starter. 2023, he was 1-5. 2024, he was 2-8. I'm just curious how we bank on the one decent season that he's had when everything that's been sandwiched around it with fairly large sample sizes aren't good, James. They're just not.
That was my question for Shane Steichen. And again, you got to go back 3 years to find good play, good sustained play from Daniel Jones. And again, I have said it all morning. I am not going to sit here and say that Anthony Richardson is blameless and he should start, no questions asked, because he has to wear this too. His development, a large part of it, is on him. He knew the things that he needed to do to be the guy, and part of that was also due to injury. But for Daniel Jones, I just can't sit here and say that he's this safe, steady pick because he has not been that player throughout his career. Completion percentage, in my opinion, is not everything. And when you look at everything, I think that you would lean more towards Daniel Jones still being sort of a volatile player. And I would argue against anybody who is willing to go to bat with me on that.
Kevin, you had mentioned a moment ago that you had one other thought on Anthony Richardson that you wanted to talk about this morning. What was that?
Yeah, I am. Is there any element that you feel like the Colts, and maybe some people feel the Colts have already done this, do you guys think the Colts owe it to their franchise if you draft the project, you see it out? And let me expand on it. Shane Steichen said yesterday the reason why Anthony Richardson wasn't starting was largely rooted in a line of scrimmage, operationally, again, making checks. Would it be considered good and or necessary coaching for Shane Steichen to say, all right, you know what? I'd love for the menu to look like the Cheesecake Factory. But it can't with this guy. It's got to look like Steak and Shake. I freaking love Steak and Shake. And that's fine. That's what the menu is going to look like. We're going to have X amount of plays, and we're going to get him out there because he needs reps. He needs to see those eyes. Can't be the virgin eyes. They've got to see things. And we're going to evaluate him on his availability, which is in question, on his ability to throw the ball accurately, which is in question, his footwork in games. That was the big emphasis this offseason. And we'll play him in that setting. Again, we'll be a little bit more reserved from a playbook standpoint, but we'll cater to what he likes, what he feels comfortable with, those sorts of things. We'll further the evaluation, and we'll make another decision off of that. Is there any part that Shane Steichen owes it to the franchise to do that with Anthony Richardson? Or is it, no, you already tried it and throw it in the trash?
Well, he clearly feels like he owes it to the franchise and to the players to pick Daniel Jones.
So you would be a no, James?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that you owe it to the fans to do that because
I didn't say the fans. I said to the franchise. When you draft him fourth overall.
Sorry. Okay.
When you draft someone fourth overall, when you draft this big of a project, have you reached this point in the crossroads where, all right, again, the full playbook is not open to him?
Yeah.
All right, you would like it to be open to him, but it's not. So should they now live in the reality of, let's cater a game plan around what he does well, what he likes? He's obviously started games and had some sort of success in the NFL. Let's cater around that. Let's evaluate him trying to stay healthy, trying to be more accurate, improve footwork. Do you owe it, again, to your franchise to do that? Or is it, no, screw it. You had 2 years. It's time for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, it certainly changes my answer. I thought you said fans at first, which I was a bit confused. I'm glad you elaborated on that. But I don't think that. I think you owe it to your franchise to try to win as much as you can. And you owe it to the guys in the locker room to try to win as much as you can. And if you truly believe that Daniel Jones gives you the best chance to win, you play him.
So why do you ever draft projects then?
Well, I think that's when you just admit you made a mistake, a massive mistake. I honestly think that the Anthony Richardson experiment here in Indianapolis will affect how teams view players that are like him in the future. And those players are probably thinking, or those scouts are probably thinking, we're not picking somebody who's of this ilk again in the top 5. So that's how I look at it. You have to admit, and I think they admitted it yesterday, even though it wasn't a flat-out statement, you admitted you whiffed on the biggest draft pick, the most important draft pick, the highest draft pick since Andrew Luck. And obviously, I think that is something that is going to be hard to overcome. But if you feel that you can't find a solution with him, then don't keep playing him. You play the other guy.
Mark, let's do something nice for everybody. Got a family 4-pack to go see the Indy 11 play Saturday against Miami FC, 7 p.m. What's the keyword you're looking for today?
How about this? This will be the 11th quarterback the Colts are starting since Andrew Luck retired.
Gosh, you're not going to make people name all
No,
11.
don't name all of them.
Dear
Don't
Lord.
name all of them.
Might be here till midnight.
Don't name all of them. Okay, so we've got, since Andrew Luck retired, you've got Jacoby Brissett, you got Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, you've got, help me out here, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones now,
Joe
Flacco, Gardner Minshew,
Carson Wentz.
Who am I forgetting? I'm leaving one. I'm leaving them open. If you can name ones that I didn't mention, there's a couple out there.
Since when?
Since Andrew Luck retired.
Who has started a game for the Colts?
Mm-hmm.
I know one of them.
Okay. And this is 317
You saying you wanna go to the
239
game?
Do we want to do text line or do we want to do phone calls for this?
Let's do the old-fashioned. We did text line yesterday. Let's do phone calls. 239-1070. First one that can give you an appropriate answer, an acceptable answer. We'll get the tickets. How's
Sounds
that?
good. That works for me.
All right, we'll do that. And we even have a spot in the Fantasy League coming up in a few minutes as well as we finish up strong and talk. I promised, Kevin, little Notre Dame action coming your way next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Lots of changes. Little David Bowie there from Mark Dykton. You'll be posting the playlist later on today, as always, right? All right, that's what we like saying. And we have a winner for our Indy 11 Family 4-Pack. They could have gone with one of three answers. What were the answers that were available? What answer did you accept?
Shout out to Brian, who won. So my question was, this is the 11th quarterback that the Colts will start since Andrew Luck hung it up in 2019. So the answers available were, I said he said Nick Foles, which is correct, Nick Foles. And then there was Brian Hoyer, which I completely forget about, but he started one game in 2019. And then Sam Ellinger was the other option. But all in total, Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Sam Ellinger, Nick Foles, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco.
There you go.
That is a murderer's row of who's who and who.
And we got a text from JKB. It says maybe Kevin's remembering this from when he was just a tiny baby. There was a car dealership in Indianapolis with a very catchy jingle about Big Dan Jones. There you go. You want to rename it Dan Jones. The
Dan Jones, yes. Dan Jones. Does this change your win total prediction for the Colts?
Not necessarily. I just don't know where do they go after the season's over with the guy on a one-year contract for $14 million? Because if they do win 9 or 10 games and they do get a wild card spot and they get spanked and thrown out, now what do you do next?
James, did it change it for you? Positively or negatively?
No. I think it might have been Stephen Holder. I think it was Stephen Holder of ESPN covers the Colts. He was saying that we were all kind of talking ourselves into these circles, but no matter which quarterback they started, the win-loss total was going to be the same, more or less, probably because both will play. So, no, I don't feel any differently about the win-loss total at all.
7.5, the over/under for the Colts.
Someone says you forgot Scott Tolzien.
He was pre-Andrew Luck retirement.
I said that.
Well, wasn't he pre?
Yeah, he didn't count. I think that's why I didn't. I guess that's why I didn't mention.
I had a few people ask about that. Yeah, I think he was that Thanksgiving game. I want to say 2016, I believe.
Tolzien started a game in 2016 and a game in 2017. Then Andrew Luck took over in full in 2018, and then after that was Brissett, Hoyer, Rivers, Wentz, Ryan, Ellinger, Foles, Minshew, Richardson, Flacco.
Kevin, I promise, while we're talking quarterbacks, Notre Dame has a new quarterback. What are the Fighting Irish going to do this year? Follow up on a big year last year for Marcus Freeman and the boys. What's coming down the pipe?
CJ Carr, I don't want to say like crazy highly ranked recruit, but definitely a high ranked recruit. Yes, the grandson of Lloyd Carr. He wins the starting quarterback job. And, you know, it's kind of rare for Notre Dame to have a quarterback with no experience. They've portaled it up a lot here lately. Riley Leonard, Sam Hartman, remember the name Jack Cohn? So this is very unusual for Notre Dame to have an inexperienced starting quarterback, and you start the year at Miami and home to Texas A&M. You actually go to Arkansas also in the month of September there. So will be quite the introduction to college football.
Notre Dame football's putting me to sleep right there.
Mark, shut that.
Man.
They played for a national title.
You mentioned Notre Dame
news. Get this newspaper guy out of here, man.
Get a hold of
What's
your
the
life.
current streak of losing national title games?
Dear Lord, Jeff, you're the one that brought it up.
Whoa.
I didn't even want to talk about Notre Dame.
No. I was honestly curious because they have consistently.
Dang, Jeff, you kind of shady for that, man. You walked the man
no,
down the
I mean,
alley
what?
and hit him over the head with a pipe.
They've probably lost 2 in a row? Is that right?
I'm just
and
asking.
they won in 80.
That is a wild question to ask. Too,
Whatever.
though. You get to a national championship game. That is petty. You know what? Bravo.
I was gonna say it took you a minute to get around to it, but there you go.
No, man. You know you might be more petty than me.
Well, we'll see what happens. As far as the other stuff that we need to talk about today, too, once again, if you're just joining us and you've been doing other things this morning, Rick Carlisle has got a contract extension with the Indiana Pacers. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but we thought we'd have some positive things to talk about to end the show today. How about that?
You're all about positivity, so have at it.
Well, there's a guy that in the first go around, maybe it was the malice at the palace that got in the way of ultimate success. It was an injury that did it this year. But one thing we know about Rick Carlisle, he develops talent, his teams win, and they continuously set the bar high for other coaching staffs around the league to kind of catch up to. And I think one of these days it's all going to come together for Rick. At least I hope it is. We were talking about deserving and not deserving for fans and teams a little while ago, Kevin, but it sure seems like Rick Carlisle and the Pacers and their fans are right there on the deserved doorstep.
Yeah, and again, a major credit to Rick Carlisle for evolving with the times. The styles that he had to play, early in his head coaching career, very different. And the open-mindedness to, pace and player development. And, they really had to reset things here. Remember, that first year of 25 wins, that was not the plan going in. It was, the thought was, hey, maybe Malcolm Brogdon, maybe these two bigs, new coach, Nate Bjorkgren's gone. We'll see what happens. And then they had to reset within that season. And obviously the rest is history since then. 25 became 35, 35 became 47, and then 50 wins this year and a trip to Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So yeah, he's one of the greatest coaches in NBA history. I think he's about to be top 10 in regular season wins, and I want to say he's there maybe with postseason wins. Like he's knocking on both of those doors. And like I said earlier, keeping that coaching staff together, I think is a pretty rare thing that like for example, NFL-wise, look at the Detroit Lions. They make this run, boom, both their coordinators are gone. Mike Weiner, there's some reports about him potentially joining Mike Brown with the Knicks, and he has turned that down. And now it's Jenny Busick and Mike Weiner and Lloyd Pierce all back with Rick Carlisle. So that's pretty rare in pro sports as well.
Hoosier 97 in the chat said Jeff went full Tanya Harding on Kevin Bone with that Notre Dame comment. I completely agree.
I'm like, getting to the national title is not an accomplishment?
Of course it's an accomplishment.
What in the world was that?
Yeah.
It was just
that was hate, but you know what? We need more of it in the world.
Good nature. I don't have a problem with Notre Dame.
If that's your thoughts on Notre Dame football, what are your thoughts on the Colts with one playoff win in the last 10 years?
I just like to, mess with the toggle every once in a while. That's all.
What?
It's all good.
Mess with the toggle. Oh, boy.
Mark.
That's an HR meeting waiting
to happen.
Man.
Why is everything turn into an HR meeting for you?
Every
single thing that is said.
You ain't get on Kevin's toggle.
I was going to say, yeah, that's pretty HRE.
Do that on your own time, sir.
Boy. It's like a fidget spinner. You just messing with
Whoa,
something.
okay, all right.
Come on now. We're already in the porta potty. There's no reason to dig any deeper.
I had a question for you because I had to use a porta potty at the tennis match yesterday. Was the little side thing where you don't have to sit down and address the main thing not available to you there?
I don't know where this is going.
I know what he's talking about. The side like urinal.
Yes. Thank you. I couldn't come up with
because your son is potty training, right?
Right. So he sits on the toilet.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. Yeah.
He's 2. He's not spraying
just making sure
all corners of the field just yet. Here, usually when he tries to stand up, it doesn't end too well right now. So
weak stream.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Stay tuned all day long. As Jake Query will have more reaction and feedback from you.
Kevin, if you want to punch him, you can.
Why? Kevin gets to punch him, right?
Patiently waiting until 9:57.
So birds are moving up in here.
So, yeah, stay tuned from noon to 3. Jake has got lots of feedback for you, and we'll take more of your texts and phone calls. JMV was not pleased at all yesterday with the development. We'll be on the air from 3 to 6. And
JMV needed to lay on the couch yesterday, I feel like. That was a 3-hour couch session.
But don't you think a lot of this just comes from general frustration just over the last decade as much as anything?
You're treading water once again. You're like the boat in Jaws. The orca is sinking and the great white shark is coming towards you, but you got no oxygen tank to blow that sucker up. You're just slowly sinking in the abyss.
Yeah,
That's what the Colts have been lately.
I forget who texted it to us yesterday, but this was like when someone was younger, and we were all younger, and our mom said, "We're having dinner. Do you want broccoli or cauliflower?" Those were your choices for this coming season.
Yuck.
Yuck to all of that.
So it's not anything necessarily against Daniel Jones. It's just that we've been here and seen this and done this, and it feels like we're getting ready to do it all over again.
I just don't think it invigorates the fan base at all. Not that Anthony Richardson necessarily would, but at least there was like, well, we could see what happens. But now it's just kind of like, okay.
I do think Kevin's onto it, though. You got a guy who's an offensive coordinator who totally believes in his play calling, and he wants a guy that he thinks can at least execute those plays. And that part I